Welcome to the Sibling Rivalry podcast. My name is John. I'm here with Michelle.
Hey,
Hey, so every year we do a contest basically to see who can beat more games in the year. Earlier this year, we did like a quarter point check where we checked in on March to see how many games we had beaten. This is going to be a podcast about every game from March until now. We wanted to do a little bit earlier, but life got in the way of that. But since then, we've beaten quite a lot more games. I don't know if we've sped up or it's just that the time has gotten faster, but I feel like we sped up. What do you think, Michelle?
I think we sped up a little bit too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were times where we slowed down. I think this past month I've slowed down, but in general, we picked up the pace.
I think we were slower at the start of the year because we were so burnt out from the end of last year.
Right? Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I forgot last year we beat over 100 games apiece. Um, so yeah, that'll burn anyone out, especially because at the end we were beating like 5 games a day sometimes just to try to beat each other. If you're wondering where my camera is, it wasn't important. So there still will be gameplay footage when we're talking about the specific games, but the camera's gone because what did it really add? Nothing. So last year, at the end of, or not last year, at the end of March, I was at 10 games. Shell's at 14 games. She was in the lead by 4. Next game that was beaten was by me. Number 11, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. So last year, the PS3 store was having this whole will it shut down, won't it shut down thing. So I bought a bunch of PS1 classics just to sort of make sure I had them, right? And I started worrying about the 3DS eShop. So I went ahead and bought a couple Game Boy Color games that I had. Also, while I was doing that, I had been missing my Donkey Kong Country Returns game for a long time, and I loved that game. And I was like, where is it? Well, that's when I turned on my 3DS. I found it. It was right on the home screen. It was I forgot I got it from Club Nintendo. Remember Club Nintendo, Michelle?
No, I barely
Oh,
used it.
oh man, I didn't use it until the very last year. It was about to shut down. I cashed in like everything I had and was able to get that game. It was awesome. Um, anyway, so I bought Pokemon games and yada yada yada. But I bought Super Mario Land 2 because I heard it's like one of the better Mario games. Because Super Mario Land 1 on Game Boy I played, it's kind of whatever. But Super Mario Land 2 Six Golden Coins is really good actually. Uh, it has like a lot of variety in the levels. Like there's this one level where you go into this giant Mario and like it's like that's the whole level. You're inside of Mario. Like just little stuff like that. Like it's not the generic like Mario like here's a desert. Here's the water level. Here's this. Like they're all very unique and you can go to the levels in any order you want. Um, so that's really cool. Um, and it just surprised me because I'm not a Mario person, Michelle, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit more later
Yeah.
on. I'm not a Mario person. I don't think 3D Mario is that great. 2D Mario is better usually, but like some of the like especially the newer ones like the new Super Mario Brothers games, they're just kind of there, right? They're kind of plain. But Super Mario Land 2 really impressed me. Um, it impressed me so much I immediately went into playing Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. Now, the title for this is very important. Don't you dare go online and say, "Hey, I'm playing Wario Land 3." Don't you dare say that because there's a game called Wario Land 3. After this, Michelle, they went into like Wario Land 2, Wario Land 3. That's how it works. But this game's kind of interesting because you play as Wario, of course. Wario was the villain in Super Mario Land 2, but in this one you get to play as him, and he's got this cool little hats that you can put on, and they do different power ups. Ooh. And it's not that
Mm.
much different than Mario, I guess, but the hats do like different things. Like you have a rocket hat, or you have a hat that helps you do shoulder blocks into these blocks you can break, and the whole goal of the game is kind of well, one to get to save up money to sort of get this castle that you want to buy. Because I think someone had taken over your castle. It's been a while since I played it. Someone took over your castle and you had to get it back. And you end up getting it back, but it gets destroyed. And depending on how many coins you got in the game, depends on what castle you got. I got a really terrible one. It's kind of like Luigi's Mansion. Remember Luigi's Mansion?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you end up, at least I did. I ended up with a real crappy house at Luigi's Mansion. And I ended up with a crappy house in this one too, but that's okay because the game was fun. Because on the 3DS, you can make little save states, right? And you could absolutely just cheese the system. You could reset these little slot mini games that you do after every level. You could just cheese them the whole time, and you'd end up super rich. But it just didn't seem worth it to me. But still, it was a good game. Not as good as Super Mario Land 2, but still good. And it being not as good was the reason why I didn't move on to Wario Land 2 or 3. Like, to me, this was me going, okay, it's just going to keep going down and down from here. If I'm wrong about that, someone let me know, but I just wasn't interested in moving on. Wasn't interested in playing more of them. And then, number 13 for me, same day I beat Wario Land. Mass Effect 2 finally finished. Now, if you remember, Michelle, I played Mass Effect 1 last year.
Yeah.
And someone, Aries, was giving me a hard time that I had not finished Mass Effect 2 yet. Because Mass Effect 2, I'm sure you've heard it before, that's the one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the big one that everyone loves. And it is absolutely a substantial upgrade in every department that matters, and every department that didn't matter, they just threw it in the trash, right? This is the most like, hey, remember what worked in Mass Effect 1? We're going to do those things only, and we're going to do them really well. Anything that even didn't work slightly, we're throwing it away. Like the Mako, the whole driving thing, like that was terrible, right?
Yeah.
But you kind of were like, oh, this could be cool. They didn't have time for it. They just threw it away. There's no more driving. There's no more exploring planets and wasting your time. It is just, the whole setup is like, hey, there's these bad guys, figure out what they're up to, and assemble a team to fight them. That's the whole game. The entire game. And
it's pretty straightforward.
It was extremely straightforward. Like, the first game had this whole mystery. This one is straightforward. I mean, there's a mystery going on, but like at the end, you don't get any closer. They're like, hey, check out Mass Effect 3 to figure out what's really going on. This one's just about the characters. You meet a lot of characters, a lot of new characters, and they get really in depth with them. And each one of them has like a whole little, like a couple quests arc if you talk to them enough, which I talk to everyone constantly because of that. And once I learned that you can get a little quest to like round out their character, it was awesome. I don't know if it comes off as the best game ever by any means, but it was definitely a good moment. It made me a little concerned too because I know Mass Effect 3 is the dark horse, right? So,
yeah.
So it made me go, oh man, where's it go from here? Because this did set up a lot of cool story elements, and I was like, they're not gonna pay off, are they? And spoilers, I will play Mass Effect 3 later this year, but they don't pay off. But that was my number 13.
All right, and the whole time John was playing all these games, I was working on a really long game again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the last Ace Attorney main series Ace Attorney game, Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice, that had a 3DS digital only release, which a lot of people were really upset about. Once again, I think like we talked about last time with Ace Attorney, it's pretty much you played one of them, you played them all. They all have the same setup, they all have the same types of characters in every single game. But I will say, you know, I started off kind of dreading playing this one a little bit. Like, I wanted to play it, but I was just like, I just like knew what I was getting into. I was going to be getting into like a 25-hour long game that was just going to take forever and was going to be 95% reading. But it actually ended up being really good. I'd say it's actually one of the best Ace Attorney games, especially with the last case.
That's good to end on I guess you're not ending, right? Because now great Ace Attorney's coming out, and
yeah, and you need to like cut and insert that part from the last podcast that we had where I was like, they're never gonna localize those. It's been years, and then they're like, we're bringing it to the Switch, and I was like, Jesus Christ, now I gotta buy these games eventually too.
They just put everything on the Switch. It'll sell a million
Hey, I
easy
mean, I don't
somehow.
mind it. But yeah, it ended on a really strong note for the main series. They do have a spin-offs, and I do still have to play Phoenix Wright versus um Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, whatever.
Hmm.
I still have to play that as well, but I was very pleased for the most part with this game. There were like a few things I didn't really like a whole lot. I've never liked in the games where they make you search for like somebody's like nervous tick because I just would have to look those up sometimes. I was just like, I don't know what little motion they're making with their hand or what like I don't know what their nervous tick is. I can't find it because it's zoomed in and you're like having to like move around the screen to find what they're doing when they tell a lie, and I can never get it.
Have you ever
Um,
played or seen L.A. Noire?
yeah, I played through it.
Where they have those super advanced faces that you're supposed to be able to read, but sometimes they're just like they go from talking normal to making like this wild face, and you're like, oh, I guess this guy's lying
You
because look
know,
at the face he made. He's
when
drooling.
I
Yeah.
played it, I realized that the faces meant pretty much nothing in that game. Every accusation that you were going to have against somebody or like conversation, you were just going to base it on evidence, and
Mm,
that always was going to work. Like the face thing was never. I think they really hyped it up, but I was like, it's so hard to tell with these characters when they're actually lying.
right.
Apparently, it's hard to tell just in general when characters are lying because I could not do it in this game very well. They also had these seances where like you would go through this like divine vision of their last moments of life and find inconsistencies with what was happening, and those were a little like unclear as well, for sure. Um, I had trouble with several of those, and I did have to look several of those up too. Because sometimes it was totally fine, and other times I was just like, I mean, what thing here? What 2 points in this vision am I supposed to be connecting together that don't make sense? Because like I'm a little lost. So I wasn't a huge fan of those two like additions to the game, but everything else is pretty good. The last case was extremely good. Uh, they did something really weird with this one though, where the second to last case in the game actually had literally like zero relation to any of the other like cases that were going on. It was really weird.
Hmm.
Normally, all the cases in the game will somehow end up threaded together, and that will be all kind of revealed and explained at the end. And this time, it's like they're just like, we got to fill this with something. Just put another case in here. Just just about this guy's noodle shop or whatever. It's fine.
Okay, but
And I
was
was
it
just
a
like,
was it a entertaining case though?
it was all right, but like
Weird.
I don't care about this. I'm in it for the main story of the game. Like, I don't care about whatever this bullshit side case you put in here was. Like, you just slid in for no reason was. I don't got time for this. I'm like 100 plus hours deep into this game series at this point. Like, probably 200 hours deep. I need to know what happens. Let's get on with it.
Fair enough. That kind of reminds me. I'm watching this show called Blacklist, or I was watching it, and I got like
Hmm.
5 or 6 seasons in, and it's kind of like I guess like CSI style, where every episode is like a different type of crime, but this is like a
Hmm.
different type of criminal they're going after. But like the story had all these like crazy overarching plot lines, right? And some of them didn't get resolved, and or they got resolved in boring ways, and so now when like they do an episode and like here's the new criminal, I'm like, I don't care, just tell me more about the cool stuff I care about. And it like
Yeah.
got so bad, I tried to watch an episode recently. I was like, I guess I'm just done with this show. I felt bad. I don't like stopping shows in the middle of them, but especially 5 seasons deep. But anywho, that was your number 15, right?
Yes.
Number 15, a big game. Uh, right after Mass Effect 2, I believe the next weekend. I don't know why, but I just got the feeling that I wanted to play Maniac Mansion.
It's just so random for you.
It was absolutely random, but we played this game, and I don't even know if you remember, but our stepdad, he used to work for these guys. They did roofing together,
Hmm.
and we went over to their house when we were super little. Maybe I was like 6 or 7, and they had Maniac Mansion on the NES, And
Yeah, I don't remember that. I was in
yeah,
like 4.
I believe they had an N64 too, and I think they were playing Turok, but Rage Wars. But the NES Maniac Mansion, it like enthralled me. Like it was like one of those games where I'm like, this is what I like in games. Because it had a sense of mystery and there was like exploration. It felt like you could do anything. You could pick all these different characters and those characters matter. Like those are gonna change how you play through the game. Have you played through this game, Michelle?
I actually have not, which is funny because this is a LucasArts game, right?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
I feel
What?
like that's why I have not played enough LucasArts games, but this is hilarious because I am the point and click adventure game person
Oh, you know
out of the
why?
both of us, definitely. So it's surprising that John's like, when you talk about how you saw it as a child, that's pretty much how I see all point and click adventure games now.
You know what? I actually do remember why I played this. It was for one of the challenges for the month.
Oh,
One of the challenges was to play an important game, and I
oh,
said Maniac Mansion is important. I think Maniac Mansion is like one of the quintessential point and clicks that kind of all of them derive their style from. I
I can
believe
see that.
they did Scum VM, which is like one of the most popular engines that they used throughout the whole '90s, basically. But anyway, played the enhanced version that I think allowed saving. Man, let me tell you, I went through it a couple times, failed, and it's of course it's one of those early point and clicks, so you can
Hmm.
fail at any point, and it sure will let you play through the whole rest of the game, and you'll just be stuck, and you're like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to do, and it's like, oh, you dropped this paint earlier, so it ruined the whole game. And it's like, what the fuck? So I'm not gonna lie, Michelle, I failed a couple times. Watched a whole video guide. Watched someone play through the whole thing,
There's no shame.
and
None.
then I got back on and just tried to replicate it as best I could from memory. And I got almost everything except for like two or three things, but it was it was cool. It felt cool to go through, and I still like, even though I just saw it, I like still had to really remember. I was like, okay, this person
Yeah.
does, and
That's what I did with the game The Colonel's Bequest. I'd watched Pushing Up Roses play it and then I bought it and I played through to what I could remember.
yeah. And now that I've played through it once and I actually know kind of what my objectives are, even with different characters, I kind of know like, okay, I need to get this key and this key, and I need to get this from the mailbox. And if I don't get those, the game's over. Like, I think I'd be able to figure it out a lot better. It was a very cool game, and I'm glad I played it finally. Next game I played was number 15 for me, so I've caught you officially with this. So last year, I believe I got Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault for Christmas. I beat it, and there were only two more Ratchet and Clank games I had to get, just not including the PS5 one that just came out. But before that, it was Ratchet, and one of them was Ratchet and Clank All for One, and the other one we'll talk about in a little bit. But I went ahead and bought All for One. I actually thought I was never gonna buy this game because just looking at the cover, I was like, no, thank you. That's not even a Ratchet and Clank game. That's some weird co-op wannabe beat 'em up thing. And that is what it is, kind of, but it still very much is Ratchet and Clank. And I played it alone. I didn't play with anyone else. And there's like an AI partner with you, and they were pretty decent. Like almost like, because there's a thing where it's like, oh, if you shoot the enemy with the same gun, then it does a big explosion damage, and it's like the AI would always do it. So they were like convenient in that way, but also if there was platforming, like God forbid you fell off the platform, they were like, hey, he's going down there, I'm going down there, and it would
Oh,
get you a
he jumped
game
off the bridge. I guess it's time for me to jump off the bridge.
every time, and so it would get you a game over, which was minor, but it was just like, okay, fucking AI. But I was surprised. For a game that I thought was like basically a disgrace to the series, it was fine. I had a good time playing it. It's not even the worst Ratchet and Clank, probably not even close. So definitely good, and it had the PS3 Ratchet vibes, which is not like my favorite vibes. I'm more of a fan of the PS2 one, but still, like, it was cool to be back in those vibes for sure.
Hmm. All right, next up, I beat game number 16, which is Strong Bad's Cool Game for Attractive People.
What the hell is this, Michelle? Because I played it before, but I want to know, like, why did you play it?
A long time ago, like when I was in my teens at some point. I saw somebody and made friends with him on Twitch during streams. His name was Shonic, a combination, I'm assuming, of his name Sean and Sonic,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And he played this game on a stream. And I was really just getting into point and click adventure games at the time. And I was like, oh, this looks cool. I didn't know anything about Strong Bad or anything, but I kept that with me for like 10 years or however long it was. And I had it on my radar and I was like, I'll get it one day. And then Telltale went down. And
Right.
this game got removed from all digital storefronts completely. And it's not really, you can't really just find it on eBay and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, this sucks. And then I guess somebody else bought up the rights to all of Telltale stuff. So it came back up finally.
Right.
And I jumped all over.
Skybound, right? Skybound.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I believe
I
it's
don't
them.
remember.
The Saviors.
Yes. And I jumped all over this. I was like, oh, I can finally play it. Because I had since watched some of the Strong Bad emails and stuff. And but I did not like grow up watching all of that internet sensation happen or anything. Uh, and I really liked the game. It set me on some kind of nostalgia trip for things I didn't even actually have nostalgia for. Which sounds so weird. It's just such a product of its time.
Right. It has
Like
the vibes. It's like when you play Grand Theft Auto Vice City and you're like, oh, I feel nostalgic for the 80s. And like, you weren't even born, but okay.
Yeah.
But you feel it because it's so strong. And this one's in particular
Like it's
because
still
it's
strong for like that nostalgia for like 2005 and
and the
it's really
internet.
there. Yeah. For just those times on the internet. And
Yeah.
it's such a charming and memorable game. I will say that it's very memorable.
When I
Um,
played it, I think because it's one of those episodic games. It's like episode 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah.
5. And again, it's been a long time since I played, but I remember playing the first episode and being like, I think this is the worst game I've ever played in my life. And then like I started playing a couple more episodes and go, you know what? I'm starting to get it, you know? And I actually think some of the later episodes were just better designed too, but um man, it got funny to me the more it went on. Like I started to get into the jokes, so I definitely feel you. It was a little bit of a trip.
Um, yes, and the later episodes you're right, they get really, really good. Oh God, I was trying to figure out what that episode's name was. I was like with the second to last one,
Oh yeah.
Dangeresque. Oh my God, that one was so good. Like I loved it. Like I almost wanted to give the game 5 stars, but the first like 3 episodes, they were good. The first one was just okay. The second and third ones were good, but they just weren't quite good enough. I had that nostalgia going for me with those, but like the last couple of episodes were very, very good.
And just to
And
remind anyone, this is Telltale when they were still making point click games, not when they were making whatever the later Walking Dead games are, which are still
yeah,
fun, but this is definitely more of a point
yeah,
and
these
click.
are very traditional point and click adventure games. Very, very on point humor and everything. Like they really did take that show and just transform it really like perfectly into the kind of game it should have been for that series.
Yeah.
So
You know what's
if you like
funny?
Strong Bad, you'll love the game.
You know what's funny? Speaking of Homestar Runner and all that, remember Flash was going down last year.
Oh yeah.
Flash went down. You can no longer use it. A lot of games got saved because they made these little emulators. Newgrounds did, I know, but a lot of stuff was lost. Um, and one thing Homestar Runner had, they had this little episodic game or something. It was like game 1, game 2, or whatever, and there was like going to be an ending.
Hmm.
And Homestar Runner's been down forever, so there was no ending, right?
Yeah.
It's been like 15, 20 years or something. Right before Flash went down, I think days before, they put it up. They they
No.
they finished the game and they put it up, and they said we didn't even make it good for emulation, so go play it. Um, it's just like a Flash game, but it was like, oh man, you guys, so cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that's number 16 for you. Number 16 for me. Last time, and we're going to do it again this time. Last time we did this little podcast back in March, we shared games, sort of. Michelle bought me a game that she wanted me to play, and I bought her a game that I wanted her to play. We ended up playing both of them. but you bought me Eastshade, and you said, I believe the kind of the thought process was is it had Morrowind vibes,
Yes.
and you couldn't even really explain why, because you were like, well, you start on a boat, which you do, and it crashes. It does, and the first town definitely has that weird. I don't even know how to explain it because I'm not a culture person, but it's definitely got like some Eastern uh, vibes, like Arabia sort of.
And spherical buildings.
Yeah, yeah. So there was definitely the Morrowind vibes, but you were kind of like, oh, I don't know about the game overall is actually kind of like this weird mixture of like Morrowind vibes and a little bit of Oblivion vibes sometimes. When you
Yeah,
get into
actually, yeah.
those really open. Now that said, the games are nothing like those games.
Yeah.
The game is about painting these three or five paintings for your mother. So it's actually, and don't get, if you were like, oh, a painting game. No, 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 no. It is a exploring game. Definitely, it's a game about
It's
meeting.
about the journey,
Right, it's a
not
game
about the destination.
about meeting characters and the first when you first start playing, like it's very oppressive. The world, like it feels like it doesn't want you to explore, like because it just goes, okay, here's the town, and then you talk to a few people, and then it's like, okay, go to the next town. And it's like, and you go to a bridge, and the bridge is out or something, or you got to pay something to get across. I forget what it
Yeah.
was, but
I think you got to pay something.
and once you hit that point, it's like, well, go figure it out. And you're like, oh, and then it gets nighttime and it gets cold and you die once or twice or three or four times. And eventually you figure out like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't die. And then you start getting smart and you realize,
Banking 101. Oh, fuck, I shouldn't die.
and then you get smart and you realize, oh, if I buy the tea at the store, I can stay out more at night. And that tea is like the first stop in like, the whole game is kind of like about building your ability to explore the world and find the things you need to find. And like, so yeah, sure, you get the tea, you can explore at night, that's cool, but also later on you can just buy a coat and then you don't even have to worry about being out at night. Or you can build a campsite so you can just sleep at night, you don't have to go back to the town and go to sleep. Or you can, like, as soon as you cross the bridge, one of the first people we meet is like, hey, I'm sitting on this raft. You could build a raft too if you get X, Y, and Z. And you're like, well, I got to go find those. And it takes you a long ass time to find them. Or it took me a long ass time to find them. But within the context of the game being about 10 hours, it took me a long time to find them. But when I did, I was like, whoa, like now I can go everywhere. And that boat was so slow and I hated it. But then the next place I got to was like, hey, I got a way better boat and it can go on the ocean too. And it's like, oh, this is awesome. It's faster. And it just, it was literally incredible, Michelle. It really was. It,
Glad you ended up liking it. I think I had wanted to get something else for you initially, and then I had played Eastshade, and I was like, no, he's got to play this. It's just, it's so good. It's got some problems, though.
yeah, it's got a couple glitches. The way it looks when you're on the bike is great. Don't get me wrong, because it gets you around way faster. There are the fast travel tees, but if you use the fast travel tees, you might miss characters along the way that are just in the woods. So you don't want to do that too much. But also, I had it glitch out on me a couple times where you could tell it was trying to load something in the background. You could hear like a waterfall, but it was like it just wasn't working sometimes. So the bike is what you want, but when you're riding on the bike, woof, man, the animation's like, ooh, like it's like you're throwing up the whole time.
Did you have a lot of issues with your frame rate throughout? Because I had a lot of problems with that. Sometimes it would be fine. Actually, the more I played it, the more stable the game got for some reason. But initially, like the frame rate was kind of all over the place. Sometimes it was too slow. Sometimes it was too fast.
Yes. I think I did a couple things to adjust it, but you're right. Even when you would walk around, like the plants would load in, and that's when it would slow down if you spin around too quickly. And that's probably why the bike was like the frame rate dropped on the bike because you're just moving into zones way too fast.
Yeah.
And one thing I didn't bring up when I wrote about it on Backlog Read though is also like once I hit the final area, I believe it's called the Bluffs. It's this
Yeah.
enormous field basically with
Windmills.
windmills and like four things to find in it. Um, I think that area is less good than the rest of the areas. There's some beautiful locations. There's a cave in there that's pretty incredible, and
Hmm.
the bluffs in general look good. You gotta take a painting of the bluffs actually. Um, but there was like three quest givers there, and that's it. I was like, oh well, there was like 25 quest givers at the city. Like I just wish there was a little bit more in that last
Yeah.
area. And because it was so big, it was like, oh, I know I'm near the end of the game, and I took the picture, but I also wanted to do everything I could do in the game, and I
Yes,
did.
I did too. Yeah.
So when I was at the bluffs, and also that's when I started using my fast travel teas finally, and it started crashing, so it also
Yeah, because I
irritated
never
me.
use the T's ever.
Yeah.
Not even to stay out at night or anything. I was just like, no, I guess I'll just go to sleep because I'm a lazy piece of shit. So,
This is what it was like. There was two hot springs in the bluffs, and there was one on the beach. And when I went there, like I went to the hot springs, I had already been there, but I didn't fill up the bottle. I didn't even realize I had to. Like I
hmm
didn't understand how it worked. So I was like, oh, I'm at the bluffs. And let me try to fast travel to the other one, and it just crashed every time. So I was like, oh, now I gotta walk all the way over there. Da, 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 da. Oh man, and then there was a part with the boat where you go all the way up to the ice area. That was amazing.
yes, yeah,
Great stuff. Like
yeah,
the quests kind of remind me, and there's no combat in the game, but the quests reminded me of like some of the more interesting quests in like Morrowind or Oblivion.
yeah. But you guys should, if anybody likes just exploration games, you should, or if you like Morrowind, honestly, because like really, it's not going to take much for you to enjoy East Shade. Like it's got some technical difficulties, but it's like more people should play this game.
Absolutely. I believe I saw it's on consoles, so um,
I wonder if
keep
it runs any better.
keep that in mind. I believe I just saw it on the Switch. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Oh, it was on Game Pass. If you have Game
Oh,
Pass, literally it's free. You have nothing to lose. So check it out. So thank you, Michelle. Also, during this time, it was around my birthday. You had bought me a controller,
oh yeah.
which, by the way, has worked flawlessly
Oh great.
on the computer and on my kiddo's new Xbox. It just works perfect. Uh, and it's exactly what I needed, so it's awesome. Um, so I needed something to sort of put it to the test. I gotten it a little bit before Eastshade, but I was playing Eastshade, so I was like, well, let me finish Eastshade. So next game, number 17, I I downloaded Sonic Generations. Figure if any game can put it to the test, it's like a 3D platformer, right? Or some of Sonic, most of Sonic Generations is actually a 2D platformer, but
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, surprising. I remember when Sonic Forces came out, everyone crapped on the length. They said this game's only 3.5 hours, and I agreed. I was like, yeah, it is pretty short. Sonic Generations is the same length, the same exact length. Now there's a bunch of other side challenges, yada yada yada, but the main game is like the same exact length. Now, granted, Sonic Generations is way better, like in the physics, and like the courses are just way cooler because they're also just nostalgic throwbacks. Like here's the chemical plant, you know that one. But also some cooler ones later on. They had Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure, which is one of my favorite levels in the whole series. So I thought it was awesome. Very good Sonic game. I actually have a weird tendency, I don't know why, to play the bad Sonic games. I played Sonic Forces. I played Lost World, which is one of the worst ones I've ever played. So it's actually kind of nice to play a good one again. And after that, I decided to put it more to the test. I was kind of in that platformer mood, so I decided to download Skyler and Plucks Adventure on Clover Island. My buddy Nick bought this for me. I don't remember if it was Christmas or birthday, but thank you, Nick. This is like a 3D platformer that I read about being really short and something about the physics being really weird. But anyway, I was like, well, let me play it because I knew it was only like gonna be like 4 hours long or something like that. And I played it, and they were right. The physics are weird. There are no invisible walls, and your character can just like plant on anything. So if you want to go up a mountain, you can just jump up that mountain.
Oh.
You kind of get in like like you can't just jump up a sheer wall, but you get on a couple weird spots. You can jump past all kinds of platforms and stuff. And I was like, man, that's weird. That's really badly designed. And then I noticed there were like little pots on top of these things that if you break them, there's like coins inside. So I'm like, oh, so the developers knew that you could do this. It almost felt like they were trying to like be like, oh yeah, it'd be fun for speed running. I agree, it probably is cool for speed running, but the normal person shouldn't be able to break the game open that easily.
Yeah, I wonder if they just were like, oh crap, we don't know how to fix this. I don't know, just put some coins up there. Just make it look like we did it on purpose.
I bet they did. But that said, for being a little short 3D platformer, it was pretty good. Outside of the little jumping thing being weird, like the actual like game was good, had cool levels, had a good sense of scale. Some of the secrets were a little difficult to get. You had to really nail your platforming. It has a Jack and Daxter vibe with like roll jumps and stuff. But it was pretty good if you're looking for a 3D platformer, something that's not going to take you long. I believe this game is pretty cheap usually. I would definitely check it out because it definitely did what I needed it to in that moment.
All right, and for number 17 for me this year, I'd be Little Misfortune. Which I really enjoyed a lot of this game, but there was just some parts that I was like, this was definitely not made by like anybody from our country because the humor was just maybe a little inappropriate.
That's what I was about to ask you about. The main, because I played this before too. The main thing is like, do you like the character, the girl?
I like her, with the exception of maybe a few tiny parts in the game. But it's mostly just some of the humor was like not. Maybe it was a little too much. It was like a little too far in some places. Like I really was enjoying like the narrative and where it was going and kind of the mystery of what was happening. And Misfortune's a really cute character, and there's a lot of dark humor in this game, and it just gets fun. It just gets kind of gross sometimes.
Yes.
One that kind of disturbed me, but also made me laugh, was that the narrator was talking to Misfortune, and Misfortune was like looking down an alleyway, and she's like, "Yeah, mommy hugs a man out there by the dumpster sometimes," and I was like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
mommy's a prostitute."
Yeah, and this is made by the same people who made Frambo, by the way.
Which is so weird. They're so tonally different.
Are they? I don't know. I mean,
in some ways, in terms of the humor is different.
The humor is different. The world is both very disturbing and dark. Because Frambo, you know what I think it is? Misfortune is more forthcoming with what's going on in the world. Frambo is a little bit more secretive. You kind of assume that. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but there's been like some abuse or something going on in Frambo. But Misfortune's just like, yep, this is what's going on. Ha ha ha.
Well, they definitely implied that Misfortune was abused as well, because later on they talk about basically how her mother's an alcoholic and possibly a prostitute, and her dad is abusive, which was, and I could, like, the one with her talking about behind the dumpster made me laugh because they made it sound like she didn't know what was going on at first, but later on in the game they imply that she absolutely knew what was going on.
Right.
And I was like, she's like a really small child. This is a little weird.
It is
but
weird.
then there was like, I was like strong, like, this is a 4-star game, you know, I really like it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And then I got to that part in the game where that cow shit in that other cow's face, and I was like, nope, that's it. That's where I draw the line right there. Why? Why is this in the game?
There was a couple
You could have
weird.
just cut it out. The duck who was just like smoking weed in the park, also really weird and out of place. I understand there was supposed to be like, it's supposed to be fantastical in a way, and like she's seeing things that don't actually exist and stuff, but like it's just kind of weird. There's another point in the game where you can like actually take drugs that you randomly find on the ground, and you like end up in this horrible nightmare dream.
I remember that. Do you remember there was like a point late in the game, like they had like a fart joke?
And it was gosh, yes. And that went on too long.
It was just like, okay.
Like she went to crawl through this thing, and she had a little toot that came out, and I was like, that's funny. And then it just like kept going, and she just kept farting, and I was like, you could have stopped. Like, this got really tasteless in some parts of the game, and I just could not deal with it.
Little
I was like, this
Miss.
game would have been perfect if you just cut out like a few just little things. Just don't make cows shit in other cows' faces. No.
It's no Frambo, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Frambo
That's
is a
good.
excellent game, but also this one's not as much of a point and click. It's kind of
Yeah,
more
it's
just
very
a
much more of a walking simulator kind
right.
of a deal. There's not really puzzles or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm so happy I finally got to play it because I was a big fan of Frambo and I had wanted to see what this was about anyway. And it finally just went on sale enough for me to get it. And my next game that I played is the game that John bought me in our last session, which was Metal Gear Solid, the original PlayStation 1 game.
I am
And
excited to hear.
I was a little worried at first to play this because you were just like, I have to look with a controller. And then, like, when I got into it, I immediately tried to play with a keyboard, and I was like,
No.
oh no. I
Oh
was
no.
like, oh my God. I was like, this is going to be bad. I was like, if I can't get this to work with a controller, I'm going to have to tell him I'm sorry. But lo and behold, like, my Xbox One controller worked absolutely perfect. No problem. I mean, some of the controls were like a little weird because some of the menus are L3 and R3,
Right.
like for the radio and for like the save menu.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it was fine. Like once you got used to it.
That's why GOG is so great. Fans make like, hey, here's the patch, and GOG's like, yeah, we're just gonna put it officially when you download it now.
And I'm like, oh, thanks for taking out this work for us. Sweet.
Yeah. Suckers, fix Cyberpunk next.
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that this was the game John was getting me, I was kind of like, we were old school here. I remember playing on like the first parts of the game as a kid, and I could like never get past them. And lo and behold, in like the 15 years or more it's been since I played this game, I actually can play it now. I'm not just terrible at it and don't die in the very beginning. And man, you know, I was actually kind of surprised to hear this is one of your favorite games, and then I played it and I was like, this was great. This game has
Yes.
held up so well. It's just so much fun to play. Um, like all of the bosses were just awesome. Everybody was super different. The Psycho Mantis boss fight was really cool and fun.
I'm
And
interested to know, how did that work on PC?
okay, so what they want you to do is if you were using controller, they want you to use a keyboard. However, I knew that wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And yet somebody online was a genius, and they were like, why don't you just move with the controller and then shoot with the keyboard? Because it was literally just one button to shoot. And I was like, oh, I can actually aim with the controller. Thank God.
Oh.
So I would just aim where I needed to and then press whatever button it was to shoot, like Z or something.
But you know, even
And-
with that is still kind of cool that it made you do that.
Yes. But it took me a minute to figure out because I was like, I knew there was a gimmick to the boss fight, but then when I realized I was going to have to use the keyboard, I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to get past this. I was like, I might have to download a save or something right after this fight because I can't do this. Like, I tried several times with the keyboard, but then when I found out that I could just aim with the controller and run around with the controller and just literally use the button for shoot, I was like, oh, okay, this is fine.
I played it on my PS3, and I was still pretty early with my PS3, so I hadn't messed with it too much. But like, I knew you had to plug in a controller too, and I looked at the PS3 controller. I was like, what the fuck? What do I do? What do I do here? And I was like, oh yeah, I can just change I had to look it up. I was like, oh, you can just change what channel you're on and with the controller. But there was like a few minutes where I was like, I think this is impossible. I can't do it.
Yeah, that's something they obviously didn't think ahead till later on how that could possibly affect the game because they don't think
course.
about that this is going to be redistributed on like every platform ever
That's true.
in the future. Really, really cool though. I sent John like a picture of the credits after I finished the game, and I had killed like 70 something people through my playthrough.
Oh wow.
John was like, that's an awful lot of people for a stealth mission, and I was just like, well,
Sometimes people gotta die.
there's that part where you're like running up that tower, and I was just like,
stairs.
grenades,
Yes.
goodbye. That part of the game was not the most fun. I died there several times. Like, you really have to be on top of that with like flash grenades and other grenades sometimes.
Right. There's
Um,
that. There's like an elevator people ambush you in or something.
oh yeah, yeah. Or and they're like wearing this like invisible dude armor. What's the word for that?
Uh,
Like stealth armor. I don't know.
Stealth camouflage or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because like I went back and played Metal Gear 1 and 2, the original ones,
Mhm.
and it's funny, like Metal Gear Solid is just a straight rip of Metal Gear 2. That stair sequence, that's in Metal Gear 2. The elevator thing,
Like,
Metal Gear 2. Uh, Attacking a plane or helicopter, Metal Gear 2. Actually, it's in every Metal Gear game. They just love that thing, but it's kind of weird. But I'm glad you liked it.
yeah, bosses are just so much fun.
Yeah,
I
and they were characters.
Yeah, so the characters and they were all very different. Like even the first boss fight with what was it, a revolver ocelot? So much fun to get those shots off, those like corner shots off as you're running around the room with him.
Yes.
It's just, and they even had a fight where you were doing hand to hand the whole time, which that fight was mildly annoying because it went on for a little while. But the fact that they made you, on even playing ground, fight with
Right.
no weapons was really a nice change of pace.
Yeah. I hope you really liked it because you'll do it at the end of every Metal Gear game. It's like it's just sort of a thing. Um,
The
so
only part of the game I got very like tiny bit frustrated with was the very ending car sequence because I screwed it up like 3 or 4 times, and I was just like, I'm so close to the end, just let me beat the game.
you know what I struggled with? I struggled with the Metal Gear boss.
Oh
He
yeah,
beat my ass, and like
yeah.
I didn't have enough rations or something, and like so I had to like
I
keep rotating back to the ones that were respawning in the room.
I had to develop like a strategy for him. It took me quite a few tries
Yeah, I had
to
to
get
do
through him.
little circles to dodge the missiles. You do big circles, you're dead. Little circles work. But yeah, it was a big pain. So where do you stand on Metal Gear Solid 2?
I'm gonna be interested to play more of the games now, honestly, at some point. Because honestly, this is a series I thought I was always interested in when I was younger, but I just thought, I'm never gonna get around to it. And now I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to get around to it sometime. Like I might need to buy that collection at some point.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 is like the Kingdom Hearts 2 of Metal Gear. It's the point where people they go, "Yeah, I think I've had enough." Or
Oh God.
they're just in it for the whole series. Like cuz
Well,
it goes
you're gonna have to hope that it's not gonna be like how I was with Kingdom Hearts 2. I was like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm done with the whole series. I'm good.
I wouldn't blame you though. There are a couple other jump off points from Metal Gear because it's just all over the place. But
I think I
Metal Gear
just
Solid
really
2 is
want
the
to
first one.
play. What is it, Metal Gear Solid 3 that came out on the PlayStation 2?
It was, and so Metal Gear
Yeah,
Solid
the
2
one
came
that
out
had
too.
like the Ape Escape crossover and everything.
Okay, yes, but
Yes.
okay,
Uh-huh.
the Ape Escape crossover is in none of like the new versions of it.
Oh.
So they took it out at some point. So if you're
See, now I
playing
have to
like
find it on the PlayStation 2.
you do, and it's very expensive. And not only do you have to find it on PlayStation 2, but you got to find the subsistence version because the other one
Oh.
is awful. Because subsistence puts an over-the-shoulder camera, which you think, okay, it was overhead in these other games. Why would I care? Because you're in a jungle, you're not in a freaking building, so it makes a huge difference. Um, yeah, Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the best ones. So
Yeah, that's one of the games I wanted to get to eventually. That's the one I always remember seeing growing up. I saw it like on Cheat with all the Ape Escape stuff, and I was like, oh, this is so cool.
right, and it's kind of self-contained because it is a prequel, right? But it's also very much not. It's like kind of like a follow-up to Metal Gear Solid 2. So you have to play 2 first. So it's kind of weird
I
in that
think
way.
it has kind of I think Metal Gear Solid also kind of a Resident Evil-esque story in a way, if you will. It's very like dramatic, I guess.
Oh, yes,
All the twists and turns.
especially if we're talking the later Resident Evils where they get so ridiculous and full of
Yeah,
themselves. Metal Gear Solid is definitely ridiculous and full of itself, but also like is not afraid to just have fun. Especially later on, they
yeah,
get really ridiculous.
yeah. It was not anywhere near as serious of a game as I thought it was as a child.
Um, yeah, cool.
Great game though. I'll have to look into the rest of the series, eventually.
Sure.
Um, but after that, I took like a really hard turn in a different direction with games. I went back to another point and click adventure
Oh,
game.
surprise, surprise.
Uh, it was from the itch.io bundle last year called Jewel Stars. And this isn't like one of those point and clicks where you don't see your character anymore on screen. Um, but you're basically, you were in space, I guess in a sleep chamber, one of those situations.
Oh, we've
You
all
wake
been there.
up, you wake up, everybody else is dead or gone. Actually, I think of most of them are just gone. And you're like, what's going on? So you get the help from, I think her name is actually Julia. She's
Like an AI or a computer?
like an AI in the spaceship, and
I've
she's trying to help
I've
you.
never heard of this game before. I just took a guess based on the tropes. I was like, it must be an AI or the computer. Julia.
Yeah, yeah, and you're pretty much dead on with that. Basically, you come to the conclusion that it's way in the future, and everybody's dead. You are like all that's left. So you're kind of trying to find meaning in your life now and find out kind of what did happen to civilization while you were away sleeping and everything. With Julia, who's a very advanced AI, and one other person too. Mobot? I think it's Mobot, yeah. And you kind of go on this journey and kind of learn a little bit more about life and what you need to be happy now that you're the only. Realize this is like, you're not going to continue on, you're not going to have children, none of that kind of stuff. Um, and you kind of learn about these civilizations and get kind of involved with them in some ways. And towards the end of the game, you end up making choices that will affect the rest of life itself, I guess.
Hmm.
Very interesting game.
At the top of the corner, does it say, "Life will remember this"?
um, what is that from?
Every Telltale game or Life is Strange or.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It was really good. It gave me these weird, like, old school PC game vibes, except like more modern looking. The game just looked really cool. Like some parts of the game, I was just like, oh, this whole place and this whole alien, like all these alien life forms and things. And this stuff's just so cool. Because the story is good, but the gameplay itself can get a little bit tedious because they kind of reuse the same puzzles several times over. And I'm like, okay, like I know how to do this now. Like just let me move on to reading the next PDA entry that I found in this abandoned spaceship. I guess it just reminded me a little bit of stuff like The Longest Journey, and that's probably why I ended up enjoying it so much. Very weird game, definitely not necessarily for everybody, but for a game I randomly like picked up on itch out of that bundle because people said it was pretty good, I was impressed.
And that'll be number 19 for you.
Yes.
So
we're pretty neck and neck right now.
We're pretty neck and neck. At this point, as you remember earlier, I got Ratchet Clank all for one. As soon as I beat that, I saw Size Matters. It was brand new. It was $20. I was willing to buy it used, and I just wanted it to go cheaper. No, it was like $30. But I was like, man, I want it to go cheaper. I'll buy it used, but I don't want to buy it in a shitty state either. And finally, I was just like, it's the last game. It's $30. I'm just buying it brand new. So I said, screw it. Bought it off eBay thanks to your recommendation. Same thing for all for one. Size Matters is a PSP game. I bought the PS2 version, and it's more in line with the PlayStation 2 games. There's definitely still those same vibes and the same attitude of the characters. I don't remember if it came out before. I assume it must have came out before Tools of Destruction because this is the first PSP game. And just like any PSP game that you play on the PS2, it feels like a PSP game you're playing on the PS2. It is stiff. It is very stiff, and camera control is always kind of whack. But it is a Ratchet and Clank game with a story that you're just like, yeah, okay. I want to say like it tried to play into something. with some character, or maybe that was all for one. I can't remember, but like it just was what it was. It was a Ratchet and Clank game. The one thing that upset me about Size Matters, I like to get the Rhino in every game. Now I'm not gonna grind for the Rhino because I don't have time for that anymore. But if I'll try to save my money throughout the game, skip a couple of weapons. I'm just like, I don't care about it. Like the sniper rifle. There's always like a sniper rifle in Ratchet. Who uses a sniper rifle in Ratchet? No one. So I got saving up for the Rhino, and then I realized like in Size Matters you can't get the Rhino until the second time through, and it costs like 99 million bolts or something. There's like a thing in the next time you play through, and I think it's in other Ratchet games, where you can get a bolt multiplier if you hit enough people without getting hurt or whatever. And basically, if you do that, then you go through and you can get it pretty easily. But it's on the second playthrough, so I'm like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So that kind of like affected my rating a little bit because it annoyed me a little bit. But also, it is just a stiff-ass PSP game. But it was the last one I needed to play until the PS5 game came out. And I don't have PS5, so I can't play that one. But, it felt like closure, kind of. And this is actually a whole year of closure, I think. Just trying to get through sequels and last games.
Like me with Ace Attorney.
Right. Or like older games where you're like, I knew I was going to play it event. Like this whole year is about that for me.
Yeah.
So it felt good to get it over with. And it could have been better, but it was nice to close it out. After that, and actually probably for a while now, since Mass Effect 2, I hadn't beat any games on my PS4, you can see, because for my birthday, my wife and son bought me Red Dead Redemption 2. I did this thing because at Christmas I gave them this huge list. I was like, buy me any of these, and they bought me all of them. And it's like, okay, well, then that's just basically me buying the games for myself. So for Christmas, I just brought them in front of the games at Walmart, and I said, you have to look it up on Backloggery, and you have to figure it out. You just figure it out and buy whatever you want. And I said, I gave a couple of instructions, like, don't buy anything that's a sequel because then you don't know, But my kid was very smart. He remembered Red Dead Redemption 1. He remembered I played it. And he said, Red Dead Redemption 2. That'll be perfect for him. So, very good choice by them. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that is full of itself. It is so full of itself. It really wants to be deep, right? It wants to have like meaning and weight to everything. Even the way the characters move, like they're heavy. They are so heavy. The way
God, especially at the start of the game, because I played some of it, and I played the start of the game a couple times now, and like, man, they just like have you trudging along.
And when you walk through your
camp,
they
want that atmosphere, that build up.
When you walk through the camp, you can't run through the camp. You have to walk through the camp. You accidentally get your horse 2 steps in the camp. Oh no, you're getting kicked out of the camp. Like, oh my god. So there's all these mechanics. Like I'll just break down one mechanic, right? There's a camp. You have a camp, and there's little meters, and they say, well, is your camp well fed? Do they have money? Do they have this? Do they have that? So they introduce a hunting mini game, and I want to keep my camp fed, so I'm like, okay, I gotta go hunting, and I gotta bring them back some food. Or I could go to the store and do that, but I pick up some food, but that costs me money. I don't want to do that, so I'm gonna go hunting. And the hunting mechanics are very complicated, and if you damage them with the wrong gun, you've ruined the meat, and it's a waste. And so you have to buy new guns, which you could just bought the food, but you bought the guns, and then you have to drag it all the way back to camp. There's no like auto thing. If you get killed on the way back to camp, it's gone. It's lost. You don't get, and that happens.
He's a dumbass, and he just like never comes when you call him if he's too far away.
Yes. Oh my! I did lose. I had a horse get ran over by a train at some point, and I had to walk all the way back to camp at some point. It was terrible. But anyway, the hunting mini game, yada yada yada. You get the meat back. It doesn't affect your meter at all because it was one piece of meat. It was one deer. And then later on, as the game progresses, you realize these meters mean nothing. They're there, sure, and you can affect them. But if you just play through the game, if they get low, no one's ever gonna care. No one cares. I mean, people at your camp will say, I'm hungry, but it's like, whatever, dude. I don't
Hey,
care.
why don't you go catch your own damn deer?
Right. And you can just restock the food by paying for it at the camp, and that's a good way to do it too. Not again, but it means nothing. And that there's a lot of mechanics like that in Red Dead Redemption 2. And once I kind of figured that out and stopped kind of wasting my time on the side stuff that didn't matter so much. I know people can get real into that, but I didn't get into it as much. When I just focused on doing the missions, had a great time. They're still slow, still heavy, but the story was interesting, especially because I already know, because Red Dead Redemption 2 is a prequel to the first game. And I already know what kind of happens to this band. It goes very poorly. So so seeing them all fall apart is kind of very interesting. Seeing when it's going to fall apart, when he basically when is John Marston going to come into his own and become what he is in the first game, is interesting to see, because you play as a different character, Arthur Morgan. He's a very cool character, but he's also pretty cold-blooded, and it has a very, very sad story going on. But this game took me, I think, 70 hours to beat. So
Oh Lord, yeah.
yeah, it's a hefty one, very
I
hefty.
still want to play it. We have it. It's just, and I played through the first part, like I said, a couple times now, just because my husband wanted me to like check it out when he first got it, but I haven't played anything since.
I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but you do gotta get through this couple, because it kind of tutorializes, like walks you through until you hit like your first camp. Once you hit your first camp, then you're kind of good. But like your first real camp, I know there's a couple camps in the snow and some other bullshit ones, but once you get your first one, you can do just the missions. That works out pretty good. But afterwards, I believe the same night, I was like, okay, I'm gonna play nothing but short games now. So I put in Mr. Mosquito on the PS2. I forgot this is a blue disc, so it's like a CD-ROM.
Oh God, it's real old, yeah.
Yeah, instead of a DVD-ROM. And those games do not work well on PS2s now. Even the slim PS2 I have, it does not work well. But I did get it to work. And I beat it all in one night. I believe it took about 3 or 4 hours. And you know what? It's all right. I remember we bought this game when we were kids.
Didn't we go to a Blockbuster, maybe?
Yes,
It was. I think we went to a store with Dad.
We went to Movie Gallery, and it was actually it was actually with Mom.
Oh, that's weird.
This was a weird period where we were kind of renting a bunch of games, and they were kind of selling games. So we got a couple games from them. We got this, and we got there's a game on the GameCube that we got. It's like a tactics RPG.
Oh, yeah, Future Tactics. It's terrible.
Well, I don't know. I played it recently, like last year or something. Just the first couple levels, and you know what? It wasn't that bad. I just didn't. I think I was too.
Got some really weird games that time, though. I mean, like Mr. Mosquito is an obscure game. It's also very expensive now.
Well, I noticed. But you know what it is because we got G4 at the time, and I was sort of starting to come into like this realization of this whole other world, and I was like, I want the weird games. I want the games that are interesting. This whole game is about you playing as a mosquito and you're sucking blood from people.
It's also a Japanese game, everybody.
And it's
that just explains everything for you right away.
It's not just Japanese; it's very Japanese in a Japanese setting. You're in a Japanese house with Japanese people, and there's like boss fights. I don't know if you ever saw one of those, Michelle, but
yes,
there's like later on, there's people doing flips and shit.
Yes, like I told you, I played through a really good chunk of this game. Like, I know they make you go through all the levels, I think, a second time over, basically. Except things have changed a little bit.
Yeah,
they take precautions to like keep you away, so they have like an incense thing burning and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes you're in the same levels, but there's different people in it, and sometimes they have the incense, or sometimes they're moving differently. It's actually like even though it's the same level, it is kind of like still very different level because they're in different locations and their little puncture spots are on different spots for some reason. I think they explain it with like, they're putting anti-mosquito shit all over them. But yeah, it was pretty good. I'm glad to have finished it. The last level was kind of interesting because it made you go through the entire house, which you only see one room at a time before that, but like suddenly you're by the front door and it's like you gotta suck the rest of them dry before they're basically dead everywhere in the house. They are dead, because you sucked so much blood from them. But they're like, you got to get the rest of it. So you like go to each room and
just murder everybody, I guess, huh?
yeah, you go to the room and they've like bombed the whole house. So some of that is why they're dying too. But it's funny. There's a sequel. I didn't know.
Yeah, I found that out too right before you told me because I was goofing around on some sites looking at Japanese games that I should play, and I may do that at some point when I know enough to be able to figure out the instructions.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess no one has a English patch for it, but we'll see. Maybe they do. I'd like to see what it is all about one day.
Yeah.
And did you know this is part of like the Simple series? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I've heard of that actually. Yes.
I never knew that. It seems so different than what the Simple series becomes.
Yeah, Japan, they have a game series on the PlayStation. I think it's only on the PlayStation 2 called the Simple Series 2000, and it's got like a bunch of different games in it.
Yeah. Anywho, that was my number 21. It was fine.
All right, for my number 20, I played Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is funny because I didn't, at the time that I played the original Life is Strange, I didn't really like it, and I especially did not like Chloe Price as a character. I pretty much hated her.
Yeah, she was a little much at times.
I thought she was like a dumbass, just little edgelord, like bitching and complaining about her life, teenager. But this game really changed that. They really delved into her backstory as a person. Like, there's no mention of like supernatural powers or anything in this game. That none of that exists yet. It's just Chloe's relationship with Rachel, because she had her little crush, like kind of girlfriend that that goes missing in the first game. That you try to find out what's happened to, and basically this game is kind of building up just the relationship with her before that, so that she's not like this just picture on a missing persons poster at the school, because that's kind of what she was in the first game. Like, you didn't really ever get to know anything about her.
Not really, no.
So this was really nice, and it showed Chloe as like a decent human being before she just like went off the deep end. It really kind of explained why she ended up the way that she was in the first game, and why she just didn't care anymore and was just like getting into fights and like doing drugs and stealing stuff. And it went into how she lost her dad, and how she felt like Max really just left her, because Max literally left her days after her father died. She'd like lost her best friend because she moved, and then Rachel just left her without a trace, without saying anything about leaving.
So let me ask you, had you already played Life is Strange 2?
No.
Okay, so you're on your way.
Yeah. Have you played Life is Strange 2?
No, I've only played Life is Strange 1.
Well, it's not related to these two games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a totally different game. It's totally different characters. The original, like, the games are just like a little duo. It's just Before the Storm and the first Life is Strange.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil things too much, but I've heard True Colors. That's the newest one coming out. It does have a returning character from one of the first games, so
interesting.
That's why they were trying to put out the remastered collection. Probably to catch people up.
Ironically, it looks worse than the original games did.
They have a problem with that lately.
Speaking of looks, though, this game actually looks. It's slightly less stylized, just a little bit, because the first game definitely had its own style. It was definitely made by an indie developer. Like, you could really tell there was a lack of polish in some places. Like, it looked a little PlayStation 2-y in some ways.
It's kind of weird. They've become like a really big deal.
Oh yeah.
The developers, like, they got like multiple games going on at one time. They're not a joke anymore. They're huge.
But Before the Storm definitely is a lot more smoothed out, just in visuals, and just a little bit nicer.
3 episodes, right?
Oh, I don't remember.
But it's not 5. 4.
It's not 5. I think it's 4. But it was just very nice. I don't know. Like, it wasn't quite as big and dramatic of a story, but it didn't really have to be. Like, they made a very smart move making this game and giving that backstory to these characters, because it actually made me replay the first game later on in the year, and I'll talk about that because you didn't add it to here, but I'll I'll at least go over it a little bit when I get to that point.
Sure.
But I was still on a roll here. So I beat Life is Strange. I loved it. That was great. And then I was like, I'm gonna just finish up a game that I'd already started, like possibly a year or two before I finished it, and that's
Wow.
Dreadout. I didn't realize how far I'd gotten in the game, but I was only like an hour away from finishing it. Like literally was just so close to being done, and I had no idea.
What is Dread Out?
Dreadout is basically Fatal Frame
Oh.
with a cell phone.
Oh, I have seen this game before. That's why
Yeah.
I know it. Yeah.
It looks like it also looks very reminiscent of PlayStation 2 games, except slightly not as good. Like they zoom in on the characters and like their bangs are like really pixelated and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if this was done on purpose. I kind of feel like it wasn't.
Right.
But if you like Fatal Frame, you'll like Dreadout. It's definitely fun. Goes on sale for like $1 all the time. It's not as long and doesn't have as many locations and stuff. Like the majority of this took place in a school, and then like you kind of escape from, like the whole goal was basically escaping from the school once you and your dumbass friends went in the school when you weren't supposed to, on some kind of like field trip or something. It's pretty cool though. The ghost designs are really cool. They have lots of secret pictures you can take. Like there's this place where you can walk up to and you see all these rafters, and if you take a picture, you can see people hanging in the rafters. It's just really cool.
You know, I think I own this game. I swear I do. But
You probably do.
I might have to play it. But then anytime I
Now-
think about it, I'm like, man, maybe I should just finish playing the Fatal Frame games. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not that long. I think it's definitely less long, I think, than Fatal Frame. It's maybe like, I don't know, like 5 hours or something.
Oh, okay, okay.
I still don't think it's too bad. It was a good time. Not as polished as something like Fatal Frame overall, and I think there's a little bit of backtracking and stuff, but it's not bad. It was good.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot to say about the story because I don't remember a number of things that happened.
That's the
'cause there was
problem
some
with
time.
doing this podcast like 10 years later.
Yeah, and also just the fact that there was about a year of gap
Oh,
time in between
right.
when I started it, when I finished it.
Right.
But I didn't really like need to know. I know we went to a school and spooky ghost things happened, and then we were trying to escape from the school. I mean, like, I didn't need to know more than that.
Sure.
But yeah. And because I was trying to still get a couple short games out the way, because Life is Strange Before the Storm was kind of a longer game, honestly. It was, I think, probably like 10 to 12 hours. I played Secret Files Sam Peters, which I played the first Secret Files game last year, and I think this is just a spin-off game. It's pretty short. It's only like 3 hours long. But I was fine with that. I don't want another really long game.
Right, right. Sometimes it's nice to just knock out a couple short ones.
And this was just a very, very solid adventure game. Like if you just want something to play in an afternoon to like scratch that itch, this is a great game for that. It's a spin-off game, so it's not related to the first, or I don't think it's related to any of the other Secret Files games. But you play as Sam Peters, and she is a very sassy lady. Like at first I was kind of turned off by her as a character, and then I just got into it. I was like, this character's great. Like here's this part where you go to you're trying to get past this warthog in like the jungle, right? And I go to just walk past, and she's like, "You want me to walk past Pumbaa?" She's like, "Is like Disney okay with that?" And I was just like, "What? You can't just say things like that." She was like super, super sassy though the whole game, and I was just like living for that. And her character really makes the game a lot more interesting than it is, because it's very just like, short, simple story. Everything looks good and plays well and stuff, but it's nothing like amazing. But she's definitely a very funny character. All right, and I'm still on a roll here, and this is the last roll I'm going to be on for a while.
Yes.
I'll tell just a tiny bit about that, like before we move on to John's games. But after Secret Files, I played a game called I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know if it's just Gnog or if it's a Gnog.
I believe it's just Nog.
Nog. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. The G is silent.
Right.
Yeah. This is another thing with the H.io bundle. It's like a game. It's very stylized. It looks really cool. You have these little puzzle boxes, and it definitely looks like it's made for like an iPad or something.
Mm-hmm.
But these little puzzle boxes that you kind of turn and move around and click on things and move things around in to solve little puzzles and get everything in the puzzle box like cohesive or finished. Every little puzzle in it finished. And I think there's just a pretty decent amount of puzzle boxes. I want to say there's like 10. And I think it only took like maybe 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours. Really fun game. Looks really cool, good sound design. There's not a whole lot else to say about it. Like if you look at screenshots, you'll be like, oh, this looks pretty dope.
Yeah, I think I've seen this game before. It did look dope.
Yeah. It's a cool game. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's it. Cool game.
Right
Gnog.
now, yeah, Gnog. Right after Gnog was when I replayed the first Life is Strange and finished that. And that's not on our list. We'll go over it real quick. Because my opinion's changed a lot. I actually decided that, I loved this game. It was really good. But it was at first, I bought this game on PS4 and then had gotten rid of it because I was like, nah, it's not that great. And then I was like, you know what, I'll rebuy it again on Steam and I'll play it again. And then I was like, oh, you know what, it's on sale on GOG, I'll rebuy it and play it again. And then I finally actually played it again. And just having, I guess, that backstory to those characters and everything just made all the difference for me. I was like, I really sympathized with what Chloe was going through and how she just lost everything, kind of. And, like, the story of, like, the world ending, going around Max's powers and stuff didn't seem as stupid this time. Because the first time I played it, I was like, this seems like a side plot. How can you make saving the world a side plot? I don't understand.
It's so fascinating.
But,
so the sequel, or I guess it's like a prequel, has changed your interpretation of the world and the characters of the first
yes,
game.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. It's so, and sometimes that can happen with video games or movies in like a good way or a negative way. So it's good that this happened in a good way.
I think also just because you interpret things differently. It's been many years since I played the first game. It's been probably 5 or 6 years. So in that time, I've just changed as a person too. My viewpoints on things have changed.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I can very much look at them now more as these characters like that they're supposed to be. They're literally teenagers. Like,
right, they're dumb.
I have a better understanding of like why they make these choices. It's because they're dumb. Yeah. But yeah, and after this, I don't play any games for like over a month because, just to make a long story short, my husband and I pretty much found out that we were being forced to move out of where we lived because the owner wanted to sell the place that we were renting. So we bought a house and moved. And that was an extremely long and complicated process that I don't ever wish to do again if I can help it.
Right, there's actually a lot of weird stuff that goes on here with your gaming. Because like I go through what's called our memory cards, which is like a history of everything. Every time we had a status change on a game or something, and like you see like, oh, Michelle bought Gex, started playing Gex, and it's like, what the fuck, Gex? And then never finished playing Gex, and then it's like, oh, she bought The Sims 2, never played it. Then she did this, and
hey, I played it. I played Sims 2. I just shouldn't add it up there because it wasn't a beatable game. So
yeah, I just think it was funny. Like there were a lot of games that you played during this time, just like to hold you over, like in between things that were going on.
It's like because I didn't want to invest in anything too much because I knew I was going to frickin' move. And what's worse is during this time, our mom also bought a house. So like 2 weeks before we moved, we had to help our mom move. Me and my husband had to help our mom move.
Okay,
and so it was just this whole clusterfuck of things going on at the same time.
Okay, so here's a question. I want you to be honest with me. Is the move why you didn't finish Gex? Or did you not finish Gex because Gex is bad?
Okay, it's definitely not because Gex is bad, but I think at the time I just wasn't into it. I like knew I was anticipating us moving, and I just like did not have the attention span for anything. My brain was like, no, we just have to wait until this thing happens. I'm like,
Yeah,
but I want to play games. So, no, no, we just have to wait. We have to watch TV every day for the next week until it's done. I was like, okay.
understood. All right, so while you were in this moving chaos, uh, I just went on an ass whipping spree,
Yeah.
and at least it seems that way visually. Looking at we have a list of games in front of us that shows when we beat them, and it's just all me for a little bit. So strap in, everyone. So after I beat, excuse me, after I beat Red Dead Redemption 2, I remember I said, "Hey, I'm gonna beat nothing but short games now." I played Mr.
Yeah.
Mosquito, right? And then I said, "Let me just get Mass Effect 3 over with." So I just started playing Mass Effect 3 immediately after Mr. Mosquito, and so when people talk about Mass Effect 3, they always talk about the ending. The ending, the ending, the ending, the ending ruins it. And it does, absolutely. Because it's just lazy, and it's actually weird because it's one of the more thought-provoking. It gives you a choice at the end. Basically, you get to pick your ending instead of it just being based on your decisions. But it's one of the more thought-provoking choices because there isn't like a clear-cut good answer. But after I've made decisions the entire 3 games trying to build my character a certain way, I expect certain endings or certain types of things to occur. If I've been the paragon that I have been, then I expect a good ending. That just seems pretty reasonable. But none of the endings are good. They're all bad endings. It's kind of weird. But disregarding the ending, the rest of the game is actually just a step down across the board. And just to be clear, I'm not playing the Legendary Edition. It probably fixed some stuff. I was playing the original one. I was playing the PS3 version, which is also, and this applies for Mass Effect 2 as well, just a bad port of the game. But even not talking about the porting or whatever, Mass Effect 3 is just a step down. Some of the gameplay's been tightened up a bit, like the actual movement stuff, but let me give you an example. There's no quest log.
Right?
Yes,
Are there quests
there
in the
are.
game?
Yes, there are. Now let me get this straight. There is a quest log, but it's just a list of random things, and it doesn't tell you where you're at in the quest, what you've done, where it's located. I mean, it will tell you what planet it's on, but it doesn't give you much information
That's
past that.
such a confusing choice to make.
Right, and I guess they cleaned it up in the Legendary Edition, but it's not. It's just bad. It's just real bad. So you're like, and there's so many quests, and they started this thing like a rumor quest. So you walk around the Citadel and you hear a rumor, and it'll just be like you passing by someone, and dialogue will pop up, and then you're like, oh, I'm on a quest to find this for this person. It's like, I don't even know who that was, where they came from. I don't know why I'm doing it. It's just like a fetch quest that they didn't even bother putting in a mildly interesting story behind. It's just like there, and then it's in your shit, and it's in your little shitty quest log that barely is a quest log, and you might find the thing you're looking for, right? But you find like a million things, and they have no value to you outside of, and there's no way to view your inventory of quest items you've collected either. So you have no idea if you got it or not. So when you're going through your quest log, you're like, oh, it's this one. Did I find this? I don't know. Let me go see if I can find this random person that was talking that I didn't speak to, but just I happened to hear them talking about wanting a rock or something. It is terrible. Completely
Sounds
awful.
like such basic things to screw up.
Right, and they screwed it up real bad. And here's the kicker. That's not even the worst part, Michelle. That is not even the worst part. So, this is around 2010-ish, right? This is EA. They were in that phase where they really wanted to add multiplayer to things. And Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is fun. Now, why am I saying it's fun? Why did I even play the multiplayer? Because it is required. Now, let me explain.
That's where we made a bad turn there, huh?
It made a very whiplash turn. I started playing the game. There's this thing, I forget what it's called. Let's just call it war points. I forget what it's called. But the idea is that in the story, you want to collect the other cultures, the other aliens, bring them all together to fight the main boss of the series. That's the whole idea behind the story. And I get that idea. It doesn't work out very good, but I get it. So the multiplayer is the only... So you gain points through playing the game, getting the people on your side, but there's a multiplier, and that multiplier only goes up if you play the multiplayer. And you have to play it a lot. And let me tell you, on PS3, there's not a lot of people playing. I ran into a couple groups, and luckily for me, it doesn't matter how many people are playing. You play the match. If you do the worst you can do, you can raise your percentage 1%. Basically, it starts at 50%, and you want to raise it to 100. To be able to get there's like a third potential ending, and it's like supposedly the best one. So you have to play the multiplayer. I'm sure I played the multiplayer like 5 or 6 times, and the loading was so slow, and I was just like, I just can't do it. I got my percentages up to 55 after playing for a whole night. So I was like, this is impossible. So I looked up, I was like, is there any other way, or am I just wasting my time? Should I just go for the bad endings and look up the rest? And I looked it up, and they said, oh yeah, they put out this app, and this app, basically you just click on timers, they go away, you click on them again, and you can get your points up that way. So I did that for about 5 days, and then I finally got my percentages up, and then I continued playing the game. The game that wasn't even that good, that doesn't have the quest logs right.
Yeah, you were really committed there. You're like, I'm going to go out of my way to download this app and spend like a week getting these points up for this game I don't care about.
Here's the thing, too. There's not even an app anymore. The app went offline. So I had to go to an EA website. It looked like some weird, like, thrown-together Flash game, like, that they had to keep online because Mass Effect 3 still existed. But, so it was so shoddy and bad. And then the worst thing, even more annoying, is it's degrading. The points degrade. So if you don't stay on top of it over like 3 days, you'll lose like 10%. So you gotta keep doing the stupid app thing. Anyway, it was so frustrating and annoying just to play a game that wasn't as good as the second one. And because of how the game works, right? In the second game, it's all about assembling your team, right? You can not assemble all of them. You can just go on your own. So how does Mass Effect 3 handle that? How do they know who you got on your team, who you don't? Well, any of the new characters that showed up in Mass Effect 2 will not be on your party in Mass Effect 3. So if you made a relationship with someone in Mass Effect 2, too bad. They're not going to be in your life anymore. If you wanted them on your team, too bad. They're not going to be. I hope you like the characters from Mass Effect 1 plus 2 additional human characters that we never care about.
I didn't even care about anybody in Mass Effect 1 except like Liara, and that was pretty much it.
Right. And oh man, I'm going to ignore the fact that Liara wasn't even a party member in Mass Effect 2. She was a DLC character because they loved stacking cool stuff behind DLCs, so you couldn't actually be in a really good relationship with her. But then in Mass Effect 3, it's like, well, fuck, I guess I'll return to being in a relationship with her, even though I was with someone else in the second game because she didn't exist. There's like a moment where they're like, hey, are you sure? What about you and so-and-so? And I was like, I don't know. And I looked it up. I was like, am I going to get so-and-so back? Because I'll just go be with so-and-so. And it's like, nope, they're not going to join your team. I was like, whoa, fuck. It's like, the game has a good sense of scale, and there are some good moments, and the actual moment-to-moment shooting and stuff, that's all fun. They've improved upon it from Mass Effect 2, but it's just a letdown in every way, and one I can't say I didn't see coming because everyone said it would be.
You just had to see the letdown for yourself.
I had to. Am I going to play Mass Effect Andromeda? No. Not even remotely interested. Next, new Pokemon Snap came out. This came out of nowhere.
I still haven't gotten this, and I really want to hear your thoughts about it.
Oh, it's awesome. If you liked, so something is a little bit lost from the original Pokemon Snap to this one, because the original Pokemon Snap had that was based on the anime, you know,
Hmm.
so it had the anime vibes. This one's not. It's just based in the Pokemon world, but it does have callbacks to the original game, which is awesome. So there's a little bit of translation. One thing that is also missing in this one, in the old game, you could like knock a Charmander into lava and he would evolve.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that was cool. You can't evolve Pokemon in this one, but everything else is like amazing because like you can go through a stage, right, and you level up your stage, and if you level up the stage, then different things will happen, like just slightly different. Like something that was like in a cave will pop out all of a sudden, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, that's awesome. And then you could go to like even like the next stage of that stage, and like it'll be nighttime or something, and like, oh, it's awesome. And I didn't even do everything. Like I beat the game, and I know you can go back and like take pictures of all the legendary Pokemon, and then they just put out a new update with new levels too. It was excellent. Everything I wanted out of a Pokemon Snap, they nailed it. You should definitely get it.
Oh, I will at some point.
Then after that, for number 24, yes, I'm still going, and we're not stopping anytime soon. WWE 2K Battlegrounds. I'm a big fan of wrestling. I got this for free, I believe, through Humble, and this game always looked like shit, looked like straight dog shit, and there was like this whole mobile economy behind it that seemed really bad about like grinding characters to unlock them. I just went in, I played the story mode, did every single thing I could in the story mode. It was mildly fine. If you've ever played WWE All Stars, it's like kind of arcadey in that same way, just not as good as that. But it was kind of fun just for that. And I did everything I could in single player. Went to go unlock characters just because I had the points to spend. I unlocked 5 characters with every single thing in single player done. There are 70 characters.
Ooh.
So that's a lot of grinding to do if you really want to unlock everything else. But because I didn't care about that stuff, like it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, especially for something I got for free. Number 25, Sunset Overdrive. Michelle, you know what I hate in games? What type of jokes I hate?
What
Ha
type of jokes do you get?
ha ha ha, we're a video game.
Oh yeah.
I cannot stand it. It irritates me so much. Like, especially like when they're making jokes about like things being repetitive and stuff. It's like, but you are being repetitive, so don't. But anyway, Sunset Overdrive, open world game made by Insomniac Games before they went back to Sony. Really
This
good.
was a
actually.
launch title. This was a launch title too, wasn't it?
For the Xbox
For the
One,
console.
I
Yeah.
believe so. Or at least pretty early on. It remained exclusive for a long time. Really fun game. Like the movement is just out of control. One of those open world games where it's like, wow, can movement get any better than this? Like just the way you can zip through the city so fast is excellent. And even though the ha 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 where video game stuff got really annoying, I did it. It had some good laughs, had some good jokes to it. And the gunplay is really cool. It's doing the Insomniac thing with like millions of different weapons. Sometimes there were a couple repeat style weapons that got a little annoying. It's like, here's a shotgun, here's another shotgun. It's like, well, so this is just a better shotgun, so it's not really unique.
Is it anything similar to the Crackdown games?
I would say yes.
All right.
In the feel and the vibe. Now, Crackdown plays itself pretty seriously, at least the first one, but this one is just like goofy the whole time. It's like, oh, here's the nerds. I'm doing quests for the nerds, or I'm doing quests for the techno people, or whatever stuff like that. You also create your own character, which is interesting, but and you can customize them to hell. You get all kinds of unlockables to customize them, and there was a different voice depending on your character style, so that was cool. Like it was fully voice acted, male, female, and you don't expect that. You expect you have like a silent protagonist, and
Yeah.
I thought the girl was a very good voice actor, actually, extremely good. So Sunset Overdrive, really good open world game. At the same time I'm playing Sunset Overdrive, I'm playing Yakuza 4. So earlier in this year I played Yakuza 2 Kiwami and Yakuza 3, and here I am, Yakuza 4. I just like every time I finish a Yakuza, I try to convince myself, okay, don't play the other one for a little bit because they're all exactly the same, and if you keep playing them, you're gonna get burnt out on. But then I can't.
It's attorney.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
but I can't help myself.
Exactly.
I'm like, no, I want to play Yakuza right now, and I played Yakuza 4. And Yakuza 4 is a little weird because it starts this thing where it has multiple characters. I believe there's 4 different characters you play as. So it's kind of like a couple different mini Yakuzas. Like, here's this Yakuza where he plays this guy. Here's this Yakuza as he plays this guy. And that was kind of interesting. And some of those characters I liked, some of them I didn't. Some of them had really cool fighting styles, some of them didn't. But they all had their little stories, and it was interesting because it kind of changed the vibe of Yakuza. I mean, it's still the same, like walk around Tokyo, do the quests about giving pizza to people or whatever, those kind of things, along with the super serious other stuff. But I did like it. I think I liked it more than Yakuza 3. Yakuza 3 seemed like they were trying to still figure it out. But Yakuza.
So which one would you say is your favorite still right now?
0.
Out of everything you played? 0.
And it's not even close. And I mean, the other ones are all excellent. Don't get me wrong. But Yakuza 0 was like next level. And I'm expecting the only one that might even come close is either 6 or the newest one, Like a Dragon. Because 0 was a newer one, and they had already came into their own of like storytelling, and they knew what they wanted to tell. Some of the other ones get a little too big for their britches. They like start telling bigger stories, and it's less personal. Start talking about like, oh, the government and this and that. It's like, well, I just want to know what Kiryu and his buddy are fighting about, you know. And Yakuza 0 does that. And I mean, Yakuza 0 has all kinds of other stuff too, but Yakuza 0 for sure. And if you're starting the series, I know it's kind of weird because of how they came out. They made Yakuza 0 to be the starting point of the series. They made it that way. So you don't have to go to Yakuza 1 and play it like... That's how I would do it usually, but play Yakuza 0 first, and it will like set you up perfectly for the rest of them. Like, it won't spoil the rest of them, but it will set you up. Then after that, number 27, I played Rock of Ages 3, Make and Break. I really like the other 2 Rock of Ages games. This one is kind of a step down, honestly. I think they focused a lot on this level builder. So a lot of their levels, I feel like, are made from this level creator. And they're a lot less interesting. There's a lot of more sharp turns in them for some reason that are never fun in a ball rolling game. The idea is it's a tower defense game, and you roll a boulder to try to hit your opponent, and then you go through a phase of like setting up defenses, and then you go back and forth. So it's kind of like half racing game, half. This one like really leaned into like there's a couple stages that are the tower defense thing, and then there's a bunch of stages that are like racing or time trials, and it's like, you know, that stuff is fun. It is fun, but it's just like I want to play the tower defense stuff. So Rock of Ages 3, a little bit of a letdown for me, which is sad because I did enjoy the series. After that, I played Monster Loves You. I believe this game took maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's just, you start as a baby monster, and you just make choices. You make choices, make choices, make choices. And the only real gameplay aspect of it is that you earn points based on what choices you make. And you want to earn enough points to be able to go on to the next cycle of life. Because if you don't, then you just got to like restart the game, basically. So you make the right choices, and then if you want like the best ending, you got to get those points up too, like your human relations versus your monster relations. And I ended up getting like what I think is the best ending, where everyone kind of worked it out, and it was a cute game. I thought it was cool. Nothing much to it though. And then same as that day, I beat Squidlet, which is one of these games that wants to look like a Game Boy game. It's a platformer, very simple, like 2 buttons, jump, attack. I believe it took maybe 2 hours to beat. Very simple but very fun. If you have a new library, which I'm sure a lot of people do, and they just sort of keep passing by it, go ahead and knock it out. It's a decent time. And then, oh yeah, I'm still not done. Speaking of closure, for number 30, I played Jet Set Radio Future.
About time.
Yeah, a game I've had for a long time.
Yeah, I've watched John play this game. That's how old it is.
Yeah.
Like we've seen each other like once in the past like 13 years or something. So
Right. You've watched me play it on the original Xbox.
yeah.
Before the 360 was even a thing. So yeah, Jet Set Radio, and not to mention last year I played Jet Set Radio HD. And Jet Set Radio was like weird and like stiff and loose at the same time. Like it was kind of annoying to play, honestly, because you really had to figure it out and get used to the wonky controls. Jet Set Radio Future is exactly that, plus some more. I actually think the HD version might have had like a camera control, and this one doesn't, so it's always kind of being a mess. And this one did have a couple levels that really frustrated the hell out of me, because there was a lot of like verticality levels, and if you fell, you fell way down. And especially if there's like a time limit. I'm sure if anyone's played the game before, they're like, I know the time limit level with the bullshit. But there was a couple things like that kind of frustrated me. I got through it. I think it's probably just as good as the first game. This one's graphics are like really nice though, because they're using that cel shaded look, but they're having the Xbox money on it, so they really were flexing their muscle in the style, and it looked really nice. Number 31, Roombo First Blood. Justice Sucks. So this game actually didn't have a name this long before, but the idea is you play as a Roomba, which is a vacuum cleaner that like vacuums the floor by itself, like an AI type of thing. And the idea is intruders are breaking into your home, so you need to murder them as the Roomba to make sure they don't steal your stuff. And I played this.
The future of technology is that Roombas will be just able to prevent your house from being burglarized.
Oh, they already do that. Do you not know?
They murder people for me?
Well, you get bonus points if you clean up all the blood after they leave. So if you've ever seen a Roomba, they're probably just doing a good job of getting the bonus points.
Nice.
This game, kind of surprised. I played it a long time ago for like a video or something, just like a quick video. And then they put out the full version of the game, and I thought it was going to be like a little bit more to it, but like it's like 8 levels maybe. Every level is in the same exact house. The only difference is the amount of people that come in. And I mean, it is kind of a stealth game because if they hit you, if they find you, they'll hurt you. But like, it's all about like going into this room, honking your horn, and then hacking into like the ceiling fan to make it fall on them. Like you would do the same exact pattern every single time. And the only time that ever changed was like these 3 levels at the end, which I didn't even realize were just bonus levels because the game just kept playing. But they were like, oh, the enemies are invisible. But still not much to it. You do the same thing. You honk your horn in some area, then you drop a ceiling fan or whatever. You run into them, or it just wasn't much to it. Kind of seemed like a demo for a much larger game, but this is the full game. So, and then my last game in this little onslaught. At this point, I had gotten so far ahead of Michelle.
Mm-hmm. I thought I was never going to catch back up.
I actually got a little rude, to be honest. Earlier in the year, Michelle was playing Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy.
Yep.
I believe the PS2 version.
Mm-hmm.
And she quit because it was getting too long. You just weren't into it. Probably if it was shorter and you weren't into it, you would just finished it, but you stopped, right?
Yeah.
And my thought process on this was, I'm so far ahead, I'm going to just disrespect her.
He's going to laugh at me over here.
And I'm going to beat the game that she couldn't beat. Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy. I beat it on the Xbox because I still had the Xbox hooked up from Jet Set Radio Future. The first level of this game was fucking awful.
It was.
I don't know what that tutorial was, but like when I was playing it, I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. If the whole game is like this, I can't do it anymore. There was like one save point in the whole level, and like the combat's sort of whack. The combat's whack throughout the whole game, but like the enemies in that were very vicious, and you don't have any health power ups. So, but once I got past that, I sort of started to dig it. And then once you finally get to your overworld, I enjoyed unlocking like the speed boost to help you get through the dungeon area. And this game is split between two characters. You play as Sphinx, of course, which is like your Zelda, or excuse me, your Link, who's doing typical Zelda stuff, exploring dungeons and doing combat, yada yada. And you also play as the Mummy, Prince Tut, and he does a bunch of really, really cool puzzle levels, which are like these Rube Goldberg style, like you gotta hurt yourself, set yourself on fire, go set this on fire to get to this switch to do that, and you have to do it all like in an order to make everything happen perfect for you. And those were excellent, probably the best part of the game.
Those are definitely really good.
Probably the best part of the game. And then it's actually funny, I believe when I saw you logged off of it, you said you were at 9 hours or something. The game is...
I was at 12 hours when I stopped.
Oh, that's...
I was like at the end of the game.
Yeah, the game is like 12, 13 hours, so you were...
So there. I might come back to it, but for now I dropped it off my backlog. It's just so... Sphinx is so... His parts are so jank feeling comparatively.
They definitely can be. I did like it more when I got the upgrades. And one thing that may have stopped you even more is like, I don't know if you know where the end of the game is, but the game
didn't finish, but
the game is unfinished. They actually ran out of money, ran out of time. So there's a couple areas that look like, oh, I'm gonna get a power up and it's gonna lead me this way, and they never lead anywhere. Because the game just never got done, right? They ran out of the budget to finish making it. And actually on the Steam version, there's like this whole project to recreate these settings and locations. Because sometimes you go and like you fight a boss and they just show up, they're just introduced and they're like, this is the boss and we've been working together. But like in the full version of the game, they were going to have like a backstory, a whole city that they had taken over, and you would learn more about them. And none of that happens in this version of the game. And that's disappointing, but it is kind of cool to see people fixing that.
I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but kind of the lack of voice acting is actually a little bit of a turnoff for me with this game, because there's so many other games of the time, you know, that had voice acting that were this type of game. Like all the Ratchet and Sly and Jack and Dexter, like a lot of early PS2 games still were almost fully voice acted at this time.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And you could tell, like, this is probably more of a budget thing versus, like, Zelda, where they just did it because, I don't know, Nintendo just loves that shit. But, yeah, it is a little weird, especially because I believe Sphinx was a mute character as well. So he doesn't even talk in text boxes, which is weird. Oh, my God, I forgot. There's, like, this rival character. He's like a bird. Do you remember him?
That jackass bird guy.
Right. Jackass bird guy who you meet like 3 times. There's never any resolution to that conflict at all. Like, it just, once you meet him at some point, like, that's the end of it. You'll never meet him again. I believe you meet him at the I forget. It's like one of the temples that has a bunch of water in it. It's very annoying to go to every time.
Oh yeah.
You meet him there and he's like, you need a double jump. Ha ha ha. And I swear you never meet him again. His whole storyline just falls off. And it's like, what? Like, not even at the end of the game does he show up. I really expected him to pop up. And the last level is awful. Again, it was like slapped together. It seems like they made the middle and they were working on it, and then they slapped the first level on, they slapped the last level on. Last level was totally awful, like not play tested properly and super hard to get through, and you have to like cheese the system. The last boss isn't bad, but the last level to it was just weird, and you could tell it was slapped in there. And
I haven't seen the ending from Nitro Red's reviewer. He's just like, you just dropped it.
Yeah, they had the gall to leave it on a cliffhanger.
That was even worse, honestly, of a cliffhanger than Haven. Haven Call of the King on PS2. That was another game series that was like never finished. They're like meant to make more games in it, and the end of it's just like in the worst possible place where like everything's screwed over. And I feel like Sphinx kind of did something similar.
Well, they were like, oh, we're going to turn this guy from a mummy back to his normal self. And then they just said, nope, it's not happening, basically. And I get why they did that, because you can't sell Sphinx and King Tut or whatever. You got to sell Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, so he's got to stay the Mummy, just like Daxter has to stay in Otzel, right? But since there's no more games, right, we can be nothing but upset about it. If they made Sphinx 2, you'd be like, okay, yeah, they move on.
You would think, though, that if they realized their budget was going to run out and that they probably weren't going to be able to make a second game, that maybe they would just turn him back.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe that cutscene was already made, or...
Yeah, maybe they're just like, whatever, just slap it in there. We got to sell this.
Yeah, they might have been hopeful.
We got to break even.
I believe this is about the time THQ was like really winding down and about to head out of business, so who knows. But that's number 32 for me, and that's the end of my onslaught for now.
At this time, I finally had finished moving. We moved in here on like June 18th was our closing date. So about 10, 11 days later, I finally was comfortable enough here to start playing games. And instead of just playing the games I already had, I was like, I just spent a ridiculous amount of money this past week buying this house. You know what I should do? I should buy games. I was like, the summer sale's going on right now, and I saw a copy of Maneater at Walmart, and I want it. So my next game that I played is Maneater. Have you seen this game before, John?
It's the shark game.
Yeah, it's the shark game where you play as a shark and you just murder a lot of people. It was actually a lot of fun. It was a really nice dip back into gaming after such a long period of time without it, and then after having such a stressful life situation for a couple months.
It's the game where you murder people as a shark. It was nice.
Very relaxing. But it's kind of like there's different sections. It's kind of open world. You can travel between the sections as you unlock them. And you're playing as this baby shark who basically you were cut out of your mother's womb. By this terrible fisherman guy who hates sharks. He cut you out of your mom's womb and murdered your mom, right? So you're on a quest for revenge. You're a little baby shark, but you're going to grow to be a megalodon, and you're going to kill him.
Wow.
That's the whole premise of the story. I was like, wow, this is actually pretty brutal at the start. This is kind of cool. I feel like I didn't expect this to really have a story. But throughout, you're kind of going through this, you start off in like a little tiny swamp kind of area, and you slowly go through the game doing quests and finding they have like littered collectibles throughout every area, so it's kind of fun to go around and try to find those. Mm-hmm. But eventually you do get bigger and bigger and level up because this is an RPG. And
Shark PG.
Oh no. Yes, it's a Shark PG. But you go through and level up, you fight bosses. The bosses are pretty decent, actually, because you think, what are the bosses in this game? One, there are some, like, alpha predators. Like, there's, like a giant alligator, and, there's, like, a whale, and there's all kinds of stuff. But there's also just people in boats. Like, at the end of the game, obviously the fisherman is who you're going after.
Sure.
And you'll have a boss fight with him while he's on his boat, and he's like outfitted it with like these electrical barriers beneath a boat that you have to break open, and he like shoots missiles at you underwater and stuff. Like they really worked with what they had. I think the best that they could have. There's lots of different areas. Like there's a whole like mini golf course that you can and you can get on land. You can flop around on land and eat people.
Yeah, I've seen people go pretty far on land.
Yeah, for a short period of time, and you can get even longer as you upgrade stuff on your shark, and as you get bigger. And it's just a good time. I like it's kind of repetitive too. There's a lot of the same missions. There's a lot of go to this beach and eat 20 people, like go over here and eat this many of this kind of aquatic life form. There's a lot of that too. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it really overstayed its welcome too much, honestly. And I think that's what was good about it. I think I spent like 20 hours on it, maybe.
Wow, that's actually way longer than I thought Maneater would be.
Actually, well, let me check to make sure. Let's see, how long did I spend?
I own the game, I think, like
Oh,
3
my bad.
times
No,
now.
I lied to you 100%. Wow, 10 hours and 26 minutes.
Oh, half of the time. You were having so much fun murdering people you didn't know.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice way to get back into things. And I guess you could almost consider it a horror game in a little bit
Sure.
of a way because you murder people.
Yeah.
And I kind of continued with that trend for a bit. I finally, because I said I was going to get this game this year, the first time it went on sale, and the first time it went on sale was during the summer sale.
Of course.
And it's Little Nightmares 2. It was worth the wait. It was great. Um, it's very similar tonally to the first game. Obviously, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly wasn't broke. So, you go through there's about 4 different areas, or five different areas in the game, and 4 of them have their own unique like monster essentially. 'Cause have you played the first Little Nightmares?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Well, they kind of each have their own monster. Like the first area is like this. I'm not sure if he's actually a beekeeper or what he is. He's a pretty gnarly looking dude though. And then second area you have this like teacher who's got like this really long extendable neck and she's really freaking creepy and awful. And you have you're basically just trying to make it through these areas to kind of continue on. And the story in this one's like a little bit more confusing than, well, actually the first game really didn't like explain a whole lot either. People kind of were left to draw their own conclusions, but I think I like it slightly more than the first game. Like some of the levels were just really excellent. I liked more towards the end of the game where it was slightly less stressful because I wasn't like being chased by somebody. With like the Pale City, it was like a very somber, gray, just city, and it was very quiet, like unnervingly quiet.
I have the first
But
game now. I guess I need to get around to it.
yeah, I mean, it's the DLC for the first game is really excellent as well. It's very worth
I don't know if
buying.
I have the DLC, but might have to get it.
You really will. Because it's one of them in particular. I can't remember which one it is right now, but it explains something in the story that you're just like, oh, you're like, what? Like you don't expect it. So I'm hoping this game will have some pretty good DLC as well. But it also makes you kind of wonder about what's the girl's name in the first game?
Look, you're asking the wrong guy. Raincoat.
It is I want to say it was like based off of a number 7. There we go. I don't know why it was hard for me to remember. I was like 9. I don't know. 7. It kind of because she's in this game. It really kind of makes you think twice about her as a character.
It definitely wouldn't be 9, right? Because 7, 8, 9.
Shut up, John. Yeah, it's great. I think everybody should play it if you've played the first game. I mean, if you played the first game, you'll definitely love the second game. And after this, I kind of continued with, I guess, more spooky-ish kind of games. I played The Room, which I knew was released on mobile like a long time ago, and they've had it on Steam forever. It's basically a game where you're playing around these intricate, like, ornate puzzle boxes and trying to kind of make your way through this mystery. Like you get through one puzzle box and then you add another puzzle box and then another one and it gets more elaborate like as you get to the third box and kind of opens up this world for you. These games are very Lovecraftian, I notice. Have you seen anything of the Room games?
No, I haven't. I've never even seen them. So when I look up footage to put in this video, this would be my first time seeing
I
anything.
feel like you've probably seen something of the first game before. You just don't realize that you have.
I'm sure.
It was very popular, I believe.
Is there only? Because just to spoil, you played 3 of them. Are there only
Yeah.
3?
No, there are 4.
Oh,
See, how I was playing these was I was like, I'm in this mode where I don't buy multiple games in a series at a time, right?
that's smart.
So I was like, if I beat the first game and I like it, and the second game's still on sale, I'm gonna buy the second game. And if the second game is good and the third game's still on sale, I'm gonna buy the third game. And then I was like, if the fourth game's still, and the fourth game wasn't still on sale by the time I finished the third, so I just gave up that dream until next time.
That's still a good idea though, because there's so many times where you're like, oh, of course I'm gonna love this series. I'll buy them all because they're on sale.
Yeah,
And then you never get to all of them ever.
yeah. I try to be good about that now and not do that anymore because I've seen also other people do it so many times where they've like bought. I had a friend who like bought the whole Fear series, never played any of them. She like I played some of the first game and she's like, these look terrible. I don't want to play these. I was
Yeah.
like, aren't you so glad you bought all 3 of them?
It would be so dumb if someone bought like all 8 of the first Tomb Raider games and didn't play any of them. That's what I did last year.
So I actually bought some Tomb Raider games as well.
I saw, but you bought like the ones that are a little bit more. The first couple Tomb Raider games, like let's say 1 through I don't know 6 or 7, you really gotta like commit because those games require you to be focused, and
Right. So yeah, the first game is a challenge for sure.
I got pretty far, but like every time I had to think like, man, I gotta play that game where I gotta think about every jump I gotta make. Oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Anywho,
But anyway, yeah, I finished the room, and yeah, I finished it while the second game was still on sale. So I immediately went into the room 2. Much more expansive than the first game. It's instead of just a room with like a puzzle box in it that you're singularly kind of focused on, you have a room with multiple different, like a room that you can actually go around in to different areas, do puzzles within the room itself, and also there's usually a puzzle box in the room as well, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So, and each room was kind of like a different sort of area. It was like one was like this sort of ruin, and one was in like this like boat in the ocean. They just all these different themes. And in hindsight, now that I played the third game as well, I think the second game is actually my least favorite overall. Like it's definitely more expansive than the first game, but the first game just kind of has this vibe, this atmosphere about it that I just liked. And it just had some cool, I don't know, areas. It's just a little different.
gotcha. The second one lost a little bit of the vibe.
It did. I think it's mostly just with the themed different areas. I was like, I don't really care for this like Aztec ruin looking place that we're in right now. I was like, I could do without it.
I understand what you're saying. Like Danganronpa, first game takes place in that school and it has a vibe, and the second game is on an island, and so it's like there's a totally different vibes. One's a dark school, and the other one's like a tropical island. So some of the vibe was lost, even though I do like the second game better, but it was different, that's for sure. So I understand the losing of the vibe is important.
Yeah. It's still a great game, and I'd recommend it to people. The third game is my favorite, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But until then, I decided to take a little bit of a break from these because the second game was quite a bit longer than the first game. The first game's only like maybe an hour and a half. It's very short, and the second game I think was running probably about closer to like 3.5 hours. So I didn't want to burn myself out. So I decided to take a little break from that, and I saw somebody on YouTube playing this game. It might have been John Wolf. It probably was. Called Now You See. It's like this point and click adventure, like hand painted game, horror game. And I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool, as I was watching him play the first tiny bit of the game. And I was like, I'm gonna go on Steam and see just like how much is this game. And he was on sale for like 50 cents. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna watch the rest of this playthrough. I mean, for 50 cents, I'll play just about any game, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not very long. It's maybe a couple hours. And you play with somebody. I think what happened was you got stranded, and you ended up walking in this house, which is always a smart idea. And you walk upstairs, and then you see this guy standing next to a tub that's just like full of blood and a dead body. And you're like, oh shit. He like takes you and like throws you in this room to be a prisoner, and that's basically where you start at. You're trying to figure out how to get out of this house. And it was a surprisingly good game. It wasn't like amazing or anything, but like considering this is probably made by like 1 or 2 people.
How long?
Like 1 or 2 hours.
Okay.
You kind of learn a little bit more about this character. I believe his name was like Elijah. I think that's correct. He kind of it really reminds me a little bit of Leatherface and just like how he is.
Weird.
Yeah, the wearing like a mask kind of deal, kind of ugly looking dude.
Wow, hold up. You don't gotta be rude to him.
Well, I mean, he was murdering people in his house, so it's kind of...
That's a good point.
And he did also throw me in his basement, so I kind of feel like he was the one that was rude, but okay. I guess I did trespass, but...
That's true.
You're
rude.
But you kind of learn a little bit about his backstory. He has this weird thing about his mom. It's weird. Like you see his mom upstairs in the attic, and she's not looking too good. She's not dead. She maybe rips her face off for you, so that you can wear it as a mask later to help you defeat him.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's the opposite of rude. She's very courteous. Too courteous.
Yeah, she was very, too courteous. Exactly. But eventually, you're able to kind of get out through, you go through a like basement sewer area, and you're able to actually get out through there. Because I guess you're not necessarily in the basement initially. There's an extra basement,
Oh.
And you make it out the house after you like beat him up because you confuse him because you put his mom's skin on your face, and he's not sure about that. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand why his mom is punching him in the face, and he's too stupid to figure it out. So you make it out, you punch him to death, you make it out the house, and then you never talk to anybody about your experience ever. You never look back at the house when you leave. He's just like, yep, I just tried to live my life and pretend that never happened.
Well, what's the point? No one's gonna believe you, so...
Exactly. I think that was the whole idea. But that was a good game. I enjoyed it. And I'm still playing games, so I'm actually catching up, which is surprising, because that was game number 28, and John's at 32 right now. And I'm going to move on to game 29, which is Jenny LeClue Detective Vu. Which is interesting, because I had this game in my wish list on GOG at one point, and then I was like, people in the reviews were like, it doesn't even finish, it's not even a full game, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take this off. And then Pushing It Poses did a video on it, and I was like, I have to have this game.
Yeah.
And it finally went on sale enough that I was like, I'll give it a shot, and it's a really good game. It's definitely very of a walking simulator type game, because there's not a whole lot of puzzles and stuff. And like Rose has said, it may be supposed to be more for a slightly younger audience because of that, because of the lack of puzzles. But the story-wise, I really liked it. And it doesn't finish, but I immediately looked up if the second game was being made and where it was at, and I think it's supposed to come out next year. And I was very excited about that. It has a really nice, style to it. Digitally painted style that looks really good. And Jenny LeClue is a character. She's kind of like this really annoying girl that she gets jealous very easily, and She's not very good at making friends, and of course, by the end of the game, she like lightens up a little bit and sees the error in some of her ways and makes a few friends. It's very wholesome. Um, oh, I don't even think I talked about the story at all, but it's basically you're trying to solve a murder, and that's trying to be pinned on your mother. You're trying to prove your mother's innocence because she is a detective, and you want to be
Oh,
just like
this
her.
is probably the follow up to the last game. They think it's the mom, but there's just someone wearing her face.
Ah, that's got to be it. I'm sure I'll see that in the next game. But I hate to spoil too much about the story, but it kind of ended up giving me Oxenfree vibes a little bit towards the end. Um, it kind of seems like there may be like a what are those called? Like maybe a parallel worlds pocket universe situation thing. It
Mm.
felt very Twilight Zone towards the end.
Just when you think it's just a murder mystery.
Yeah, they made it really interesting. I was like, what? Like for a game that's supposed to be for kids, you guys put a lot of effort into the story, and I appreciate that. So it was great. I'll definitely get the second game whenever it comes out. Uh, so yeah, and this is kind of where I ended for a minute anyway.
All right, so after you reach number 29, I actually had a thought that crossed my head. It was that she beat a lot of games, but she didn't catch me. And it felt good because it did feel like uh, when you beat Jenny LeClue and the next game you're going to beat, like, she probably burnt herself out a little bit. Like, she's not going to keep beating games like every single other day. She kind of hit her limit, and you did slow down after that. So that was my thought. I was like, oh yeah, she couldn't catch up in time, so I did pretty good. Um, but anywho, while you were doing all that, I had started playing a much longer game. So I got the collection of mana last year on a whim. I was kind of worried about it going up in price, which I believe it did. So I'm actually kind of happy I did that. Um, but the physical version, that is. And I played Final Fantasy Adventure last year, and I thought it was excellent, almost 5 stars, except it got a little too mindless at the end, where I just sort of shoved my sword into enemies while I was standing on top of them and cast heal every now and then. Uh, so I was like, okay, let's play Secret of Mana. I've heard a lot about Secret of Mana over the years, how it's one of the best games ever made, yada yada yada, and I've also heard it's way overrated, one of the worst games ever. So I've heard both sides of the spectrum, and just to be clear, this is the Super Nintendo version I'm playing, not the remake. Um, that's the one that's on the collection of Mana. I think Secret of Mana, I think I'm in the camp of it's not all that good. Um, I almost gave it 2 stars, but I ended up giving it 3 stars because for a lot
I
of the
don't
time,
I don't know why that shook me. I was like 2 stars. Wow.
yeah, I almost gave it 2 stars because like it's got a really weird combat where it's just like you're swinging and it's like you got teammates with you and you're making sometimes you're making contact, but the enemy has to be like in the right animation for you to make contact, and it's not always clear. So sometimes they're falling and you have to wait for your sword to like charge up. Basically it's like a stamina meter basically, and if the stamina meter is anything but 100%, you don't get the attack off. So when your stamina meter gets to 100%, you want to hit the thing that's in front of you. So you swing, and then no damage numbers come up, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's just clunky. It's messy. The story is like pretty good at times, but also um, a little weird. Um, I just couldn't get into it, and I went in and asked people like, so why do we like this game? Like, what's the deal? Why do people like this game? And the responses I got were always, it is a RPG that you can play co-op, and it was the first one like that. And I thought about it, I was like, well, that's it. I didn't play it co-op. I played it by myself, and that's the loss, right? Because I was playing by myself, I did it. And it's also 2021. It's not 1992 or whenever this game came
Yeah.
out. So there's a lot of co-op RPGs now, but like, so the novelty is lost on me. Um, and the story's not as epic because we've had so many more epic stories, and this is probably like one of the first action RPGs people played. So some of it's a little bit lost on me. And I'll say some of the time I was still having a good time, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. I was like, overall the vibes were good. It's just the combat could be very annoying at times. And towards the end, it actually got pretty hard. I had to do a little bit of grinding to get some of the best armor in the game. Just tough, especially when you're trying to hit an enemy and you don't know if you're hitting them or not. It's a little annoying, and there's no stats or anything. It's not like Morrowind where it's like, okay, if I adjust this stat, I'll be more likely to hit them. It's just like an actual like weird animation, just it's not hitting them type of thing.
Oh.
Because your other characters are hitting them at the same time, and it's just clunky. And the menus are pretty clunky too. I know what they were trying to do, but sometimes it's like, man, which button do I press to get to this again? Even towards the end of the game, I was like, man, what is going on? But Secret of Mana, fuck Secret of Mana. That's my official statement on it.
All right.
The
unpopular opinions.
Yeah, the third game, Trials of Mana, which we never got, which was that big, another one of those games everyone said, Seiken Densetsu 3, that's the best game I ever made. Well, now it's out in English, so officially, so we'll see. We'll see about that.
All right, and now that I'm actually like back in the game here, I'm regularly playing games. So I beat game number 30, which was The Ring 3, which was freaking awesome. Instead of doing this whole like themed rooms thing that the second game did, you're just put into like this Lovecraftian Resident Evil Seventh Guest style like mansion, and it looks amazing. It looks so good, and it has all these different areas. It's got like a greenhouse type area, an observatory. It's just got all this cool stuff in it, and you have to go around and figure out these puzzles. Each area kind of opens up sequentially, each sort of, I guess, wing of the mansion. And all the other games so far, the first 2 games, they've just had a singular ending where there's nothing else to do to get. And I was very, like, I thought there was things around the mansion that I hadn't done anything with yet. I was like, what did this stuff do? And then I finished the game and it was like, you got the bad ending. And I was like, I'm sorry. There were multiple endings to this game. I was like very excited about that. Actually, maybe I lied. I think the Room 2, it might have had one other ending. Nah. I think I'm just thinking of the third game. But it was really. I actually went back and went for all endings. I explored the mansion further to do extra puzzles. Like they have like little secret puzzles just in like nooks and crannies for you to end up finding and doing, and they connect between these different wings of the mansion. So it's not like you just do one thing and then you're done. You have to do one thing over here and then go, into the greenhouse area and find, move a brick to find a secret puzzle inside, and you finish that. And, it was all just really cool. I think just the look of the atmosphere of the game combined with the better flowing puzzles just made it the best game to me so far. I'm pretty excited to see how the fourth game is going to end up being. I kind of wish we had like a VR system, because the fourth game is actually in VR as well.
Yeah, it's so expensive though, and like you start thinking about like, well, how many games am I really gonna play with it?
Yeah, at some point we wanted to make a VR room or like set up a VR area in our new home, and we're just like, if we ever do that, that's gonna be a little while.
Though, the technology is advancing so quickly. Like,
It is.
I saw the Quest 2, and I almost bought it a couple times. I understand it's a little more underpowered than, like, the ones that connect to your computers usually, but, like, there's no sensors, there's no bullshit. You can just play it wherever you want. I'm like, wow, this, like, is cool. But then I started thinking about what games I'm going to play. I'm like, well, none of them really. Like, 1 or 2. And, like, some of the ones that I kind of want to play more than others are, like, not on the Quest. They're, like, exclusive to PlayStation, or they are like Astrobot or whatever that one is with the with the mouse.
Oh yeah.
Moss, or or it's like Half-Life, where it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to play Half-Life Alex on the Quest. I don't know if that's even possible.
Have you played anything in VR before?
Have I? Yes.
Okay.
I had a couple friends with it. I played Beat Saber a couple times.
Oh, me too. That was actually pretty freaking dope. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I believe I played Super Hot a little bit as well. Anyway, next game, number 34, is American Fugitive. I played this because the challenge for the month was play an American game. It was because it was 4th of July, and that's just kind of what I thought about. So when I make the challenges, I like to like make them just to make the challenge. I hate to have a game in mind. So usually if I have a game in mind, I go, okay, I got to make a different challenge because I want to have to actually think about it. If I'm just like, oh, I know I'm going to play Secret of Mana, so the challenge is play a game with the word Mana in it. That seems a little unfair. So after I said play an American game, I was like looking through my games. I was like, oh, I don't know what the fuck to play. And I found American Fugitive. It's like a top-down Grand Theft Auto style game. Pretty boring. That's the best way I can describe it. It is just like playing itself semi-seriously, has semi-good everything, sometimes some bad stuff, but nothing like that ruins the game. The game is pretty easy. There was a couple times where like they asked you to do things without getting caught by the cops that were like almost impossible, so you had to like sort of trick the game into getting the cops away from you. Sometimes you have the cops chase you a bunch and then sneak back and go get it. It was weird. And the story like has this plot twist and that doesn't mean it much to you, and I don't know. And there's like different endings, but like based on last decision. Overall, probably the most middle of the road game I played this entire year so far.
All right, and with that, I played the game 31, which is Planet Coaster, and I had actually been playing this game probably for a couple months.
Yes.
Just like on and off, because this is quite a long game. I bought this and City Skylines at the same time, and when I first got into this, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna really like this as much, and then it completely eclipsed City Skylines entirely, and I stopped even playing it. I stopped playing City Skylines because I got so into playing this. I love career mode in Planet Coaster. I think they did an amazing job. They like set you up with these like slightly pre-built or possibly completely pre-built parks that you have to meet some kind of requirements and goals in to get certain numbers of stars to unlock more levels, except it doesn't really take that many stars to unlock the rest of the levels, which is kind of weird, but okay. And they have a really varying amount of objectives and different focuses for each of these levels in career mode as well. Some of them are really simple. It's just like make a coaster and make this amount of money as a profit, and like an easy, medium, and hard set of objectives for each level. But as you get further in, they become much more specific and have a specific focus. Like some might be to focus on the amount of shops you have and how much money those shops are making, or to manage your staff in a certain way. And some are just really focused around the rides and to make rides with certain levels of prestige or certain levels of fun or fear. I'm not going to lie, though, the levels, this game is called Planet Coaster. I find the coaster building mechanics to be a little bit cumbersome for me and almost a little too in-depth for me. Like, there's this level, good going, Miss Molly, that level, that they require you to build this freaking gigantic coaster. I mean, huge. And this is a level that's considered to be like an easy level too, which I was really surprised about. I was like, this is not easy at all. And I tried for over an hour to make a coaster, only to realize it was still way too short. And I was like, I really don't feel like doing this for this objective. I want to make the park itself, the whole park, not just the coaster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spend all my time on this. So I just went in Steam Workshop and I downloaded a coaster that
Oh
was made
wow.
for that level, and I just slapped it in there. And I was like, okay, on with my day. I gave it a good shot, and now I don't feel like doing this part. I just want to get to the rest of this where I can get my monthly profits up to $7,000 a month, which was that whole level was just really hard. It was fun, but it was also like kind of terrible at the same time. But I did that a couple of times with coasters because I made my own or found a coaster that I liked and just tweaked it around just so I could have that base already done and not have to spend like ages and ages fiddling with it. Now, when I'm making my own park, I'll probably spend, a lot of time on my coaster and whatever. But for career mode, I was just like, I'm here to do the objectives and the park management aspect and not so much the building aspect. Because they would give you parks that, like, there was this one park that probably had 20 shops in it, and they were put in the worst places ever. And I was like, no wonder this is constantly just hemorrhaging money because you have all these shops that nobody's going to buy anything from. So I fired like all but like four of the shopkeepers and closed down the shops, and it just like immediately made everything better. But if you don't know that, how you need to place things in the game, and that you need to place shops and rides like really close together, you would fail that level. So I don't know. It was just a great game. Uh, Spoilers, it's probably going to be in the top 10 for the year because I loved it. I actually still technically have not. I don't know how people consider this game, like what they consider beaten with Planet Coaster, because I looked it up and people on how long to beat, and then people said 21 hours, and I was like, there's no way. If you're considering doing every level in career mode, there's absolutely no way in hell it's 21 hours. Because I
Well,
only did. Mhm.
it's important to remember that I believe Planet Coaster's been updated about 1,000 times, so um, it's possible that when they beat it at 21 hours, there just weren't that many levels.
Because I mean, I did all of the easy and all of the medium levels, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of levels because each place is like 3 levels per stage, I guess. We'll go with that. And I spent over 40 hours in this game. Like, and I didn't even do the hard levels. But I was just like, I don't know what other people consider beating. I feel like they're considering doing one easy set, one medium set, and one hard set beating it. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like I have to end this at some point. And I would really like to save the hard levels as like almost like a post game thing to play around with.
I think that makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, so I was like, I'm gonna just call it beat here since how long to beat is not giving me any indication. I've already spent over double the amount of time that they say. So I just entered it there for now and considered it beaten, and I'll consider it complete once I complete the hard mode levels.
Right, because otherwise, what would you even consider complete, So
Yeah.
um, after American Fugitive, number 35 for me is Nexomon. So, actually, I skipped over this, but earlier in the year, I talked about getting the Game Boy games, and I got all the Pokemon games. I tried to play Pokemon Crystal and do a Nuzlocke on it, and that is the worst game to do a Nuzlocke on. Besides Gen 2 just being weird with its level scaling, like everything's super easy, which you think is good, but that means if something dies, it takes like 1,000 times longer to grind. Um, so I ended up like going through, got to like Gym 5, and some catastrophic events occurred against a Magnemite or something, and he just wrecked my whole team. So I quit, and I was like, I'll play it again later. But I was kind of in the mood for a Pokemon game, and I'd seen Nexomon. People had talked about Nexomon. There's also Temtem. People talk about Temtem a lot, but Temtem's not Temtem's not finished. So I don't.
Yeah, my
like it.
husband plays Temtem.
Yeah, when Temtem is finished, I'll get into Temtem. But Nexomon was a mobile game that they decided to put on Steam. So I was already a little hesitant, but the reviews were positive. So I was like, okay, let me get into it. And the transition from mobile to Steam game was done very well. Anything that was mobily about it is almost gone or minimized to the point where it doesn't matter. Like there were like boosters in the mobile game, like oh, it increases your catch rate or does this or does that. You can just find those items in the game now. Like experience shares, you can just find them in the game, usually late game. But they're paced out to where you don't get too strong too quickly, and that's pretty cool. The monsters, one thing I don't like is the monsters are categorized. There's common monsters, uncommon, rare, super rare, legendary, whatever. And of course that's how Pokemon is kind of, right? If you look at like the cards and you just kind of generally know what's what. But this one's like, hey, this is a common, kind of like a mobile game will. And I played it and I caught a couple cool ones I saw, and there was a couple uncommon ones I caught, and I was like, oh, okay, but I like the common ones better. I like the way they look, so I'm going to keep playing with them. Wrong. So the way it works is common ones don't evolve and they suck. Uncommon ones evolve once and they suck. Rare evolve 3 times. That is what you want. And they are decent. There's also ultra rares that are going to be substantially better, and you can catch all the starters because there's 7 starter Nexomon, which is awesome because you can get one for every type in the game. But you can also just catch them in the wild, and they are substantially better than everything else and evolve 3 times as well. So that aspect kind of perturbed me because I was leveling up some commons and some uncommons. I was like, oh yeah, look at this, and I looked it up, and people were like, just stop, don't use them. Now, granted, there's 300 or so Nexomon in the game, and each route has like, fucking God, it's got to be like 20 or 30 different types of creatures in it. So there's a substantial amount to choose from. You just have to choose properly. The battle system is pretty weak because it's got like, there's like the type advantage thing, and that's all pretty basic, and every creature has like really like 4 or 5 good attacks per typing, and then they have some status effects, and the status effects are actually just completely broken in the game. Like if you paralyze something, they will never get a turn until they're unparalyzed, which is exactly 4 turns later. 4 turns, you've already killed them, and the AIs don't use items or anything. So the trick to every battle was, even the legendary battles, which were cool because they were like boss fights and they had like 30,000 HP. Awesome, right? Because it's not like Pokemon boss battles where it's like, well, if I just have the right typing, I'm gonna kill it all in one hit anyway. They had boss battles, but if you paralyze it right off your first turn, which is a percentage chance, granted, but usually you'll get it after a few tries. You get the paralyze, you've basically stun locked them through the whole battle. So that part's bad, but there's a great game here. There's a great game here. It's like everything I kind of want Pokemon to be. If Pokemon systems could be in this game, it would be like almost perfect. Like there's a pretty cool story going on. At first, like you go to the first town, and it's like you got to beat the leader or whatever, and you're like, okay, that's just the gym leader, but okay, whatever you want to call it. But there's like a story behind why that person's doing it, what they're doing, and then it's like, oh, well, you also have to beat the leader of the next town. But then like you go to meet them, and they're like not wanting to fight or something, and you end up on some different plot line, and by the end you don't even fight all the leaders. You just move into this whole save the world plot, and it's like, wow, this is great. Like the story is like way more than it needs to be, and like there's this whole thing with the bosses, and I don't want to spoil anything because it is really good if anyone's looking for something like to feed that fix. And I know there's a sequel called Nexomon Extinction that's supposed to be way better, but I'm also a little sketchy on that one because it I believe it wasn't even a mobile game, or maybe it was, I don't know, but it has level scaling, which is something I'm always very very against in games.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially things I'm leveling up my creatures. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm gonna try it out because this one had like an expansion. The first game had an expansion that led into the second game. It was like at the end of it, it was like, I guess this is the Nexomon's Extinction, and I was like, oh, yeah, dude, that's the title of the second game. So I was like super into it, and it was awesome. I gave it 3 stars because of all the problems it had, but I had fun the whole time. It really consumed a lot of my time.
I'm kind of interested in it, honestly, now.
Yeah, I think I got it for like super cheap, so maybe like less than $5. So definitely check it out if you are in the mood for that kind of thing. Just remember that battle system's pretty whack.
All right, so now we're on me again. Game 32. So on my birthday, John usually gets me something on Steam or something like that.
Right.
And this year, he decided to get me Loom, which he hated. So for my birthday, he got me this game, this shitty game that he hated.
Okay, to be clear, it is. I hate this game. It's a 1-star game for me, but I wanted to know like your opinion on it. I was like, because I hated it, but it is like has a lot of positives to it, kind of.
Kind of. I thought it was okay. They did like this. The it's a point and click game, and the little map that they have, which is just like this little house, it's all like hand modeled with like in real life, and they filmed it, which you think sounds really cool. When you actually pull up the game, the game takes up such a tiny area of the screen, and the video quality is really shitty for what it is. Like, I don't know what they filmed this with, but it looks like it's not really crisp and clean and good looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that was something that was intentional or not.
I'm not sure.
But the puzzles went from like really easy to why did you make this choice? Like, why did you make the puzzle like this? It just kind of felt a little all over the place in terms of difficulty. It's a very short game. It's like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
If that, honestly, if you already know what you're doing, it could be like 15 minutes. But
to be clear, this is a Double Fine game.
Oh, what?
Yeah, this is a Tim Schafer joint. So
are you messing with me right now?
I'm not fucking kidding. And the sequel is them too. I got this game originally from a Double Fine Humble Bundle.
I don't think it's by Double Fine though.
Well, they published it.
Mm.
We got to do some research, but I'm pretty sure it was them.
No, it's not by either of them. It's by State of Play Games, developed and published.
Doesn't Double Fine make State of Play? Am I wrong? We'll have to do some research.
I feel like you're wrong here.
I could be.
What's weird is I don't know if they made the sequel. I don't know if they made Lumino. Actually, I think this was like they won like an independent games festival finalist award thing. So I think this is just some random ass indie developer. And so honestly, this game kind of reminds me of like a student project. It's really what it seems like.
Yeah, but it was pretty fascinating. Just the creativity in them, like recording like an actual recording and then having it be gameplay. Yeah,
it was pretty neat. I feel like there's still better like ways to go about that now, even if you are going to actually film it. As it's not too bad. I'm looking back at the screenshots again. It's not too bad. It's just it really didn't feel like much of a game.
Right. It was like a experiment, kind of.
Yeah. And then I went because I know you had talked about Lumino City, and I was like, oh well, let me look at the reviews on that. And let me look what he said about it. And then you hated Lumino City, so I was like, never mind. I was like, I'm not going to play the second game to see if it's any better. I was like, I don't care enough. I like some of the things that they did. Like I said, I thought the whole style was kind of cool with the filming it and everything, but at the same time, I was just like, there's just nothing here. Like, there's just some random kind of obscure puzzles and not really much of a story or anything. I know you're, like, trying to get into the house and isn't there something going on with, like, your grandpa or something?
Right. It's something about that. Something to do with your family member. I believe there's a letter at the end or something that says, like, hey,
your granddad's missing, and he doesn't have any power to his house, and I think you're trying to figure out what's going on.
Right. It's kind of like serves as like a little demo for
Lumino City, I guess.
City, because Lumino City, well, you go to the city and you find your granddad or whatever.
They really make this game sound better than it is in the About This Game section, though. They're like, Immerse yourself in Loom's photo-real world, solving perplexing paper puzzles to help restore the power and uncover a deeper mystery behind the blackout. And I'm like, is it really though? You didn't uncover really much of anything in this game.
I mean, it's weird when
Okay.
you look at pictures and you look at like what kind of game it is. You're like, this looks excellent. Like, of course I want to play it, but yeah, it just didn't pan
The
out.
fact that it costs money is kind of a problem too. Like this should just be a free game. Free game on itch or something, it would be awesome. You'd be like, oh, this game's so cool. But the fact that it's $6, like, excuse you.
Well, I'm sure they spent thousands of dollars creating it with its whole film process, but I don't know. It just
I don't think they
wasn't good.
spent thousands of dollars. I feel like this, I mean, like the way it looks filmed and how small it is on the screen, I feel like it has to be like this is looks like a student project. Like it
It's
looks cool, but I've known other games to do similar things to this. Just not, I mean, similar ish anyway. There's like oh God, what was it called? I dropped it this year. It was that clay looking game, Armicrog.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Armicrog had real sets as well. Everything was all real.
Armor Krog was a Patreon supported game, right? Not Patreon, Kickstarter game. So
I think so.
that game took a lot of money to get made too.
Yeah, and that was unfortunate too, because I kind of feel similarly in a way about that game. Like the puzzles were just kind of like, ugh. They just hit me the wrong way, and I dropped it throughout the year.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's what
Loom.
I thought about Loom anyway.
I'm glad I got to hear your thoughts on it. Afterwards, I played Spider-Man, PS4 Spider-Man. Last year, I played Spider-Man 2, which is like the gold standard for Spider-Man games until this newest one came out. And yeah, this newest one's pretty excellent. It is every single AAA game you've ever seen before in your life.
Hmm.
It's got the
But
bases you need to take over. It's got the towers you need to go
but
and
it's got that Spider-Man coat of paint on it, you know?
exactly as the Spider-Man coat of paint. Um, so it is pretty fun. I felt like towards the end, they do this thing with the villains that pop up. There's just kind of one good villain the whole time, and then a bunch of them pop up towards the end, and they try to have a little bit more substantial story. And it's just like they didn't give them enough screen time, and it feels kind of wasted. Like, oh, we could have had more of these guys in the future, maybe, but maybe we still will. I don't know. But besides that, just pretty excellent AAA game with the Spider-Man in it, and it controlled well. It looks like it's set up good for Miles Morales that came out on the PS5 just this year, last year. So I would be interested in playing that game as well.
Right, next for my 33rd game, I played Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. And I always wanted to play this game forever. I've seen so many like screenshots and like anime wallpapers back in the day that people used to make, and I was like, I like it's the game you always hear about. It's always proclaimed as the best in the series and everything.
Right.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's held up better than I thought it was going to, because I hate to say it, the games that are very gray and brown and they just lose my attention very quickly, usually.
Sure.
It sounds so dumb, but it does. I could just get bored visually. But Fatal Frame 2 is really good. I didn't play the first game all the way through. I played some of it before, and it just didn't look as interesting to me. So last year when we were kind of going through our phase of buying stuff off the PlayStation Store, I went ahead and passed up on it. Almost kind of wish I didn't now. And I know you're thinking, oh, well, you can always just go back and buy it. Well, if I could ever actually get into the PlayStation Store on my PS3, I would do that. But it just crashes continually. So
Hmm.
that's apparently a major problem. It's pretty much a nightmare to actually get into the PlayStation Store on your console now.
That
So
wouldn't shock me. I'm sure they're not updating it anymore. So
yeah.
first
So
first
if they
game's
could
pretty
fix that,
good.
that'd be great.
First game was pretty good.
Yeah, I think it would definitely still be worth playing now that I've played the second game, ironically. But I don't have it. And, maybe if I can get into the store one day, maybe I'll get it. But
Do you own
who
the third?
knows?
Do you own the third game?
Yes, I did buy the second and the third game because those were the ones I was the most curious
I'm
about.
interested in the third game because I keep hearing like that's where it starts going downhill. So
You know, what's interesting is because I watched Nitro Rad's videos from back in the day.
right,
He seemed to think.
that's
Mhm.
probably where my opinion stems from.
Well, he said a lot of people tend to either like the second game or like the third game because it got different vibes, they get different atmospheres. I think Fatal Frame 3 is supposed to be more subtle horror and more unnerving than like such in your face, like here's some ghosts. Um,
Yeah, I remember him talking about the crazy amount of backtracking in the third game,
oh no.
and
There's
he,
actually quite a bit of backtracking in the second game too,
oddly
honestly.
enough,
Like,
I when I rewatch Nitro Red, I don't watch the Fatal Frame 3 video a lot. I watch the Fatal Frame 4 video because that's like the one that never came out over here, so it's kind of interesting.
mhm.
And when he's talking about Fatal Frame 4, he always mentions a line of like, "This is where everyone says Fatal Frame starts to get quote unquote bad," uh, but I would say da da da. And he kind of beats around the bush, but he's trying to say like I didn't like Fatal Frame 3, and Fatal Frame 4 is kind of like more linear, but it's doing some interesting stuff. So y'all can just shut the hell up. I kind of
And
like the way he says it.
speaking of like games that didn't come out here, Black Made in a Blackwater is coming out in October, and that was part
Crazy.
of the reason I wanted to go ahead and go through two, and eventually I'll go through three
Mm-hmm.
because I'm very curious about that.
It's weird that they're just gonna leave 4 just left in the.
I have a feeling if Made in a Blackwater actually does well, they might actually bring it out here. I don't see why they wouldn't. Like
Michelle,
if
I'm
they
gonna
make
be.
money.
Well, one, it's a standard definition Wii game, right? So it's old and it's hard. It's gonna
Yeah,
be difficult to port. But two,
yeah.
and use the Wii motion bullshit. So it's gonna take some
I
porting.
mean, you never know though. I mean, they made those freaking Famicom Detective Club games, so I
God,
mean,
you're
they're
right.
bringing all
You're
kinds of
right.
obscure shit
You're
over.
right. They can do anything they
They're
want.
digging deep. They're like, oh, if we just have to like translate this game and make it HD. You're like, sure, we can do that.
They're just like, it's not gonna sell, and they say, well, we're gonna put it on the Switch. They say, ah, never mind. You're right. It will sell. Just put it
And
on there.
not only that, but it's also coming back on Sony consoles and on Steam as well. So I imagine they will make quite a bit of money.
I hope so. At the very least, they'll make more than they did on the Wii U. So
Yeah, yeah. But I played it for two. It was really good. Didn't understand the story 100%. I knew some crazy bitch was possessing my sister, Mayu, and I kind of, can I spoil the ending? I mean, is it even really spoilery? I feel like it's kind of not.
well, it is because I do intend on playing that
Oh,
soon.
okay. Well, some crazy bitch possessed my. That's right. Kind of forgot about you. Some crazy bitch possessed my sister. I was not a fan of my sister kind of the whole time. It's really interesting because there's points throughout the game where you are kind of away from her, but you can take pictures of her. Like it picks her up on the camera
Hmm.
like she's a ghost. And I was like, this is weird. Like, there's nothing ever implied in the game that that's what's going on. It's just a very unnerving, strange thing to be able to pick her up on the camera and it'll say, like, crying Mayu or whatever she's doing at the time, like sad Mayu or whatever. And it was just like, huh, okay. Um, and that's a pretty good puzzles throughout the game, though. There's a lot of walking around, though. Like, don't let Nitro Red fool you and make you think that only the third game has backtracking, because there's definitely some backtracking. You go through, uh, 'cause I don't know exactly how the first game was, but you go through multiple houses in the second game, like different family homes, and that have their own sets of puzzles and stuff. But you end up having to go back to those places each at least once throughout the game,
Yeah,
and you got to go back
the
and forth between a couple other larger areas several times.
yeah the first game was this massive area with lots of different buildings in it, and there was absolutely a lot of backtracking. Plus, there was a lot of hidden walls that you opened up, and as a chapter changed, every single door would become unlocked or locked, which was kind of annoying.
Oh,
Uh,
that's interesting.
so
That's see, that doesn't happen in the second
you
game. You like
basically
so.
had to recheck every door sometimes.
Oh no, see that doesn't happen. You kind of sequentially, you're like once you've unlocked a door, it's unlocked forever, and you can even go back in and out of these buildings for the most part at will after you've opened them up. So usually you don't really have a reason to do that until the story leads you to do that. But I don't know, I enjoyed it. The ending was honestly kind of what I expected to happen. Because it just seemed like, because I know there's multiple endings to the game. I'm probably never going to get any other endings, honestly.
Sure.
I know you can choose to kind of like, you can choose to go with Mayu or leave Mayu behind at the end, basically. I did not leave her behind, and I kind of want to go back and at least see that ending. I don't know what the other ones are. I know some are based on, like, if you played the game in, like, ultra hard mode, nightmare mode, or whatever, you get a different ending. Stuff like that. And I don't really go for endings that involve me having to play on a hard difficulty. I
No,
just
me either. I don't have
don't have
time
that
for
kind of
that.
patience, so I'll just look that up. Hey, yeah, that took me a little bit. I think it took me a few weeks at least to make it through playing just, every once in a while. But it's a great game. I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you like the first game as much as you did. You'll probably like the second game even more.
Good.
And the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I'm really curious to see if I like the third game more. So, anyway, after this, I wanted to play some kind of shorter games. I was also still behind by a few games.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me delve into my little library of RPG Maker / this is actually a Wolf RPG editor game. Let me delve into this little library that I have and kind of play some of these games. So I played, I think it's actually pronounced Light, like literally lie and eat combined into one word. I think we're just going to go with that. Wolf RPG game, really well made. Like visually, it looks really good. It is a very short game though. There's like a little baby-sized mystery where people are being murdered in this town that you go to with your father, as you're calling him, because you're like a small child who's like, I don't know, maybe you're like 5, 6 years old, something like that. And you're kind of like trying to figure out what's happening and why these people are disappearing and have, or subsequently being murdered or whatever. It's really short. It's like, 30 minutes to an hour, something like that. It was good. There just wasn't a whole lot of actual gameplay. It is an actual RPG. There's sort of fighting, but it really doesn't matter. Like, you're never gonna have to grind up or anything. It's like there's 4 fights in the whole game, and that's pretty much it. But I went from this. I went straight into the sequel, which is just Light 2. And
Same day. It looks like.
Yeah, I guess so. It was definitely better to me than the first game. It went into the backstory of the characters a little bit more. It wasn't as confusing because there's you're a dragon, you're a person, but you're a dragon person. You don't look like a dragon person, but that's what you're called.
Okay.
So if that makes sense. And
No.
there are other animal people as well, along with regular people. But you're kind of trying to find out more information about these dragon people because apparently they're quite a rare commodity, and people tend to put you in slavery because you are rare. But the guy that you're with is, I guess, kind of keeping you safe in his own way, and you're trying to figure out why that is. And you've met you meet another little dragon dude here, and you kind of learn about the powers that these dragon people have. Because how you defeat enemies in the game or end up in battles is by eating lies. You literally can tell when people are lying, and those lies will manifest as enemies, and you will fight them and eat them. So continue on with the story. And that was kind of happening in the first game too, but very little. It was kind of confusing. They just hadn't developed that idea enough yet. And the second game used that a decent bit more.
Sounds pretty unique, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And I like that concept. And this game was a little bit longer. I think it probably took me a couple hours to get through. And I do report, there was a third game that I haven't played it yet, but I do have it downloaded. So,
I was about to say, was it not on sale?
But all these games are free. The Riot games, you can actually download them on VG Person, where they do all those translated games. This, you can buy it too on Steam, but I mean, it's legally free online as well. So,
sometimes when things are legally free, but they're also on Steam, I do go ahead and buy them on Steam.
Yeah, like the Strange Man series, that's all on Steam and stuff as well, and those games are free.
Money. I believe there's there's this game called Don't Escape. I played through all of them. They're Flash games, but they're excellent.
Oh yeah.
And the fourth game is on Steam, just a real game, quote unquote, realer game. And
Kind of like how the Cube Escape series is also on Steam.
yeah, I probably will buy those one day just because I like them and want to support the devs. But anywho, that's 35 for you. 37 for me. Again, happy you didn't actually catch up. It felt good. I have been playing Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. The reason I even have this game is because my local grocery store had a video game section. It was a pretty normal sized video game section, glass cases, whatnot. And then one day I noticed, and I've been around buying games a while, so I can feel it in my veins, right? When you start putting clearance things on a couple games, and then all of a sudden you start noticing clearance things are on every game, they're clearing out their game section, right? You ever go to GameStop around the time of, like, the moment you start seeing clearance paperwork or stickers all over PS4 games, you're like, they're getting rid of all the PS4 games. So I just gotta wait like that perfect amount of time to where they're as cheap as possible, then I grab them.
It's actually a very good point. Maybe I should have gone to our GameStop to see if what was getting clearanced out.
Yeah, especially with GameStop's closing down all the time. So Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, I kind of waited. I believe I got it for 15, which is not terrible. I believe it was under what it is. Also got some other games that aren't on here, Crash 4 and something else, Medieval, which are both under MSRP, which is pretty good, brand new. Crash Team Nitro Fueled I just played because it was a short game, and after Spider-Man was a pretty decently long game for AAA open world stuff, I was like, let me play a little short game and this little racing game. Okay, remember earlier when we were talking about like fuck Mario, whatever, we were talking shit about Mario for a little bit. Yeah, I'll take Mario Kart. I'm okay with Mario Kart. I feel a little bad because I know everyone talks up Crash Team Racing, and like, I think some of it's in the port, and I don't want to talk bad on the port because it looks really good, and they did all this stuff where they took all the tracks from the second Crash Team Racing game, Nitro Fueled, and they put it in this game, or Nitro Kart, and they put it in this game, so that's awesome. But there's something just fucked up with the AI and how they race. You can race perfect, absolutely perfect sometimes, and like the AI will just somehow like get way ahead of, like, there's like one person in every race that I feel like they've designed to be like good, and they'll just be like 30 seconds ahead of the whole pack, and sometimes you're racing, they'll be nowhere even close to you. So it's weird the way it works. Like, the AI is not balanced. It does have some pretty severe rubber banding, except for on that one person, and it was very frustrating towards the end, like finding ways to beat them. And I was like looking at how to be a speedrunner, basically. Like, how can I beat on medium difficulty? How can I beat these people on medium difficulty? Like, how can I race perfect to beat them? You shouldn't have to race perfect on medium difficulty. If like 100cc on Mario Kart was that hard, I would hate it. But it did get very hard to the point where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. But eventually I got through it, and the last boss was actually pathetically easy. So it was fine. I enjoyed it. It was a good game. But I would take Mario Kart any day of the week. Then after that, number 38, I beat Resident Evil Revelations 2. This is a game I got during the summer sale. I'd actually had this on my wish list forever, but I kept putting it off. There's something about it being episodic. Every time I would see it on my wish list, I'd be like, oh, it's $3, and then I go look at it, and it's like $3 for one episode, and then $80 for the rest or whatever. I think I ended up getting it for $15 for all the episodes. I was trying to just buy the episodes, not all the stupid DLC and shit, but if you buy it all together, it was still cheaper, so I was like, well, whatever, I'll just get it all. It is episodic, it's 4 episodes. There's also 2 DLC episodes. I didn't do them, so I don't know. They're not that in-depth story. But this is like Revelations 1 was weird. It was on a boat, and like it was like in this time frame where it was trying to be like a horror game again, but it was also still trying to be Resident Evil 5, 6 goofy ass bullshit. So it was kind of all over the place, and it was a fun game, but it really couldn't find a good identity. There's a lady in the first game that like everyone has wetsuits on, but for some reason her wetsuit is like missing a leg piece part of it. So just one side. So one side is like bare leg, the other side is like regular wetsuit. It's like, what is this anime ass bullshit? But it like describes the game perfectly. It just doesn't know what it's doing. But it was fine. It was good. Revelations 2 is like trying to be more of the horror game, and it was trying to be episodic, which was the trend at the time, so they could put out more stuff. And you're playing as Claire, and I like Claire. She has an annoying emo girl with her who has a traumatic past or something. She hates her dad. Her dad ends up being Barry, who you play as well, and he's got an annoying little girl with him. And it's just fine. Like, it was kind of boring, which surprised me. Like, there's some like puzzles, especially with the Barry side thing, where like it's cool, like it is well made, but it's like when I see the puzzle and I see exactly what I'm gonna have to do, what blocks I'm gonna have to move around, I go, okay, let's get this shit over with. Like it wasn't exciting to do, and I was just more interested in getting more of the story, because there was a kind of interesting story with an interesting villain going on. But I don't know, it was okay. It was doing decent stuff, maybe like a low 4-star. And then I got to the end, and I was like, is that it? Like, I got, what the fuck? And what ended up happening was I got a bad ending. How do I get the good ending? Throughout the game, there's choices you can make, and those choices will affect, like, you play as Claire, you make some choices, and it'll affect when you play as Barry. And that was kind of interesting. It didn't mean anything, because I didn't even know what the choices I was making did, but if I were to replay it, I would know. But there was one thing in episode 3, at the very end of episode 3, after you defeat a boss, at the very end of the first part of episode 3, so when you're playing as Claire, not as Barry. So you have to, there's a point where Claire's getting attacked by a monster, and the emo girl who's with you, she doesn't use guns. So, and you can switch between the characters on the fly, but if you shoot the monster with Claire, if you grab your gun and shoot the monster, that's the bad ending. If you somehow slowly walk the other girl over and grab the gun and then shoot the monster, then you get the best ending. But I didn't do that. I just shot the monster with Claire, because I switched to the other girl and she was moving so slow. I was like, oh, I guess what the fuck's going on? I switched back to Claire, and like it said press a button. I said, oh, okay, press the button, and it shot him. I was like, okay, moving on. And that's what affected the bad ending, which was in the next episode. So when I got that bad ending, I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just replay the episode, because I guess you just have to replay the Claire part of that episode. And then you could go back and do the final part of the Barry episode in episode 4, and you get the good ending. And then I went back to the Claire part in episode 3, loaded it up, and immediately was like, I'm not going to fucking do this. This is so boring. Like, the moment I saw where she was, I was like, I do not want to do this again. It wasn't that fun the first time. It won't be fun this time. It was just like all right, and I was not willing to go through all right. And what's crazy is the good ending does have like some pretty, it is much better. Like, there's a whole nother stage to a boss fight, and characters all meet up in like a good team effort to fight it off, and it was pretty cool. But I was just like, I'm just not gonna do it again. I just watched the ending and said, yep, I got it. So Revelations 2, make sure you pick up the gun with emo girl. If you do not, you will regret it. And then after that, number 39 is going to be my last game for the year. Or not for the year. For this, for today's...
Oh, I looks like I'm going to win, man.
For today's podcast, Paradise Killer. This is for a challenge. Foss made up the challenge this month. It was to play a game with a overwhelmingly positive rating, or over 95 on Metacritic. So over 95% rating on Steam is actually not terrible to achieve. A lot of games actually have it. 95% on Metacritic is 60 games like ever. So that wasn't gonna work out. He didn't think that through. But he goes, I'm gonna play Paradise Killer. Kind of like wink winking, like, I know you want to play Paradise Killer because you were talking about it. Paradise Killer is like murder mystery, like Danganronpa, really heavily Danganronpa, like in the art style. Like, it's got 2D characters, like they're like cutouts kind of,
Hmm.
but it's an open world game, which was a little concerning to me at first because it's like, how open is the world? Because I don't want to be wandering forever, and you know what? It's just wide open. It's a pretty decent sized world. I mean, once you learn some abilities, you can get across it pretty fast, but it's wide ass open, and you can only save at save points, so it expects you to explore and find out where everything is. And when I first started playing it, and it's also a game with a lot of nouns, and I know you know what I mean, but let me explain. Do you remember how Metal Gear Solid had a lot of nouns, Michelle?
What do you mean by that?
Like a proper noun, like it just loves to name drop, like this is the beep blah 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 blah,
Oh
and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
and you have to like decipher through like what the fuck are you really saying right now? Just get to the point. So you gotta like cut out all the nonsense that they're talking. Paradise Killer's like that too, because they're in this like fictional world. It's called Paradise, and there's like gods, and there's like a whole history of things that's happened before, like millions of years. So they're often referencing. They're like, we're on the 24th island, and when we and on the 16th
You have like
island,
no context for any of this, so
right? So you kind of like, especially at it's so front loaded. You're like, what the hell are you talking about?
yeah.
Uh, but and then when you're thrown into the world, like there's like, okay, there's the body. I know I need to go to that body. That's where a person was killed. The actual murder scene you can't even access because it's like a council chamber, which is only the only people that can enter it are the people that were council members, and they were all murdered. How do you know they're murdered? There's this person who's the judge. He can just sense it, and he says, well, they never left the council chamber, so clearly they're dead. Uh, so you have to figure out how to get to the murder scene, but like there's all these people to talk to, and you're like, well, what the fuck? So you're getting all this information all over the place, and it's a little bit like too much. But then you like start to get it, right? You start to like really narrow down like what was happening and what was going on. And I put on this thing, you can turn it off, but I turned it back on, where every time I get a clue, it goes into my menu and shows me exactly who it like connects to. You can just look in the menu and see this if you want to turn it off if you find it annoying. But I find it super helpful being like, oh, that clue connects to this person. This clue connects to this person. And like this revealed a little bit more about what they were saying, and it helped me keep track of it all. And man, by the end I was like, this is just excellent. Like I'm so invested in what has occurred here. And I know you can go to the trial at any time with any amount of evidence, and the ending will be different based on if you collected all the evidence or not. Because if you didn't, then the person who they basically, yeah, and it's not a spoiler, I mean you could tell right from the start, the person who they're convicting of the murder is clearly not who did it, right? There's already, the moment you get to the murder scene, you're like, there's something off. But if you don't have the evidence, then that person will be convicted, or someone else will be convicted, or and it ended up being just excellent. The style was excellent, and it really, even though it's a detective game, it's about exploring. You get like a double jump and like a air dash that help you like really like just bolt across the world, and there's collectibles like everywhere, and some of them are just complete nonsense relics that I don't even know what they mean, but I enjoyed collecting them. I collected every single one of them, and there was probably hundreds, and there's evidence to collect. And with the collectibles you can do like a meditation thing, you see all the collectibles, but the evidence you really just have to go find. And it could be like, there was like one piece of evidence that was like just in the water somewhere, and it's an island, and I was like, what the fuck, they're lucky I ran into this. I mean, I can connect the dots and see why I would find this, but like, wow, like if I didn't find this, I don't know what this would meant. The only thing I disliked about the game is there was a couple pieces of evidence that like didn't connect to anything. Like you can sort of surmise a couple of details. You're like, well, maybe it meant this, but like they didn't bring it up in the trial, so it's like. And I looked it up, and no one could find a reason why they exist. So it's like, oh, they just didn't remember this evidence or whatever. But other than that, I gave it 5 stars. Like it hit all the right notes for me. It's got vibes. There's definitely some Suda 51 vibes they're going for, but I just enjoyed exploring the world and finding the evidence and learning more about these characters and figuring out who to trust, who not to trust. And it's got good music too, that helps a lot. It's a pretty damn excellent game overall.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this game until you Like I saw you add it to your backlog, and I was pretty curious about it. So I'm glad it ended up being really good. Maybe I'll get it at some point.
Right.
As you know how I feel about my like mystery detective games.
That was kind of my mentality, and the fact that it said open world, I was like, well, okay, that's a different twist on it. I don't even know how you do that because it very much is like the visual novel style of the other ones, but with the open world, and that exploring plays a key to it, you know. Um, so you have to actually connect the dots and figure out what you can do to maybe access other areas and do some actual detective work.
All right, and we're now down to my last game for this podcast, and that's Parasite Eve. Uh, I don't know what prompted me to want to play this. I guess I was still just on a thing from Fatal Frame 2. Um, it's just so Resident Evil, so much more than I expected it to be. Like just in how just the whole vibe of the game. And I was kind of surprised. I actually had to look up when Resident Evil 2 was made in comparison to this game because there's a very similar scene in these games. You know when the liquor jumps through the two-way mirror in Resident Evil 2 in the police station?
Yes.
Exact same thing happens in Parasite Eve where a monster jumps through a two-way mirror in the police station. And I was just like, who stole from who here? There's no way. I was like, and these games literally came out like only months apart.
So
So
no
I think
one
it's
stole.
really, yeah, I think it's just coincidence, but it was so weird. I was like, as I went in the room with the two-way mirror, and I was like, oh, is there going to be a monster that jumps through it? And then, sure enough, a monster jumped through it, and I was like, oh, well, how Resident Evil 2 of you? And Resident Evil 2 still came out first, but like I said, I don't think they stole from each other.
Right, they went ahead of time.
Definitely has some really cool cutscenes. This game, like Square Enix likes to do, they made a bunch of cool looking cutscenes for this game. Like
Mm-hmm.
really gnarly and at one point there's a dog who like rips apart and becomes a monster and it just looks so cool. Even on the PlayStation 1 with its graphics, it looks awesome. And the whole story is a little cheesy to me almost and slightly predictable. There's like this whole thing about the mitochondria, which I believe that's like the nucleus of the cell, isn't it? Something like that.
The powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how this person's mitochondria is advanced and it's like taking over this person's body to become its own like entity or whatever, and like you have powers too because there was like
Just to
you
be
had,
clear, before you go too far, I do own this game now, and will be
and
playing
you'd like
it.
to play it,
I
no,
will
I'm
be
totally
playing
ruin it.
Yes, absolutely. So
It's a little bit
tread
cheesy.
lightly.
Because Aya has her powers as well, and you're like, oh, how are you related to this evil, to Eve, as she's named? How are you related to Eve? You know, why do you have powers?
Right.
And you kind of go through all that stuff, but it's a little bit cliche. But I enjoyed it, and I thought the gameplay was really fun. I like this whole uh, using guns mechanic in an RPG. It sounds so like silly because like it shouldn't be that strange, but you have a limited amount of ammo, and you can basically upgrade your weapon with either stat boosts or special abilities from other weapons, which is kind of cool. I really like that because you can like get let's say I ended up with a stat boost on my or an ability on my armor that would auto heal for me, which is super helpful. That means I don't have to waste a turn using like a healing ability or like a healing item. It'll just heal me immediately before I end up dying, you know. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
it
don't
was definitely
know.
a good game, but better than what I expected it to be. So I expected it to have some of that like PS1 stank on it, to
Of
be honest
course.
with you, and not be as good as it said it was going to be.
Yeah, because people do hype up this game quite a bit,
Yes.
and I guess it worked out for you. I actually remember the first time I ever saw this game. And I don't know if you remember this, but we were at our dad's house, and there's this kid, excuse me, who was a little bit older than us, I remember him being 11 and us being like 10 or 9 or something. I believe his name was Chance or Chase, something like that. He had blonde hair.
Chase, and I think he was actually younger than us.
No, he was definitely older because I
Oh,
remember this weird moment where we hadn't seen him in like a year and he showed back up and he had like a deeper voice and I was like, who even is this kid?
I think it was Chase, so it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I remember this game because he brought it over on his PS1 that had the flip screen. That was the first time I saw the flip screen, and he was playing
Yeah.
it at our kitchen table, and like he showed me this one cutscene in particular about like there were these soldiers. They went into like a field or something. I believe they all got melted down or something. I don't remember exactly, but I remember being like,
I think it was in it's early on in the game. I think it's the first one of the first scenes. You're in like an opera hall and everybody
not
like
that one. It was like soldiers, and they were outside in like it almost looked like a desert.
oh, I think well like a desert. Now
Maybe
I'm
it
confused.
wasn't. It's been a long time since I've seen the cutscene. I'm trying not to spoil myself on it, but I remember seeing like him showing me that and me being like, "Whoa, like this is crazy." But I've wanted to play it ever since then. But for a while, I didn't even know what game it was, and then once I figured it out, it's like, well, how do I get it? You know. Now I know, or now I have it. So, but anywho, that's 36 for you, 39 for me. So I'm in
Yeah,
the
so I'm
lead.
still behind, but I did surprisingly catch up quite a bit.
Right, right. And I'm not like playing I don't have it listed on Backloggery right now, but I'm playing Horizon finally. So that game's not a shorty, so you have time.
Yeah, I'm playing some long games too. I'm playing like Let's Go Pikachu. I'm almost done with Ring Fit, and I'm replaying Fantasy Life, which is probably not a smart idea, but that's what I'm doing.
Oh, so I have time.
Yeah, you got plenty of time. I'm pretty chill right now with my stuff I'm playing. I'm trying not to really buy a whole lot of games before the end of the year, which is a shame because Psychonauts 2 comes out like the 25th. It comes out this week. And I'm probably just going to wait until Christmas to get it.
I think I might play it because I have Game Pass now. Maybe I'll play that. It looks
Because
excellent.
yeah, it does. And but at the same time I'm trying to not spend a whole lot of money for the rest of the year and just enjoy because there are games I've wanted to replay and I own plenty of free games. I have games that my husband and I kind of both own that I haven't played, like Pokemon Shield and Ghost of Tsushima, and
I see.
and of course then I bought those two Tomb Raider games for like 98 cents a piece because I just was like, oh, they're so cheap, I can't help myself.
Now, when will you play them? Who knows?
Hey, I'm playing Tomb Raider Anniversary actually right now as well, so
Speaking of games, I guess this
and
is
buying games.
and buying games. I guess this is the part where we discuss what games what we intend to buy for each other, assuming that the other person doesn't own it. I can go first if you.
All right.
Uh,
Yeah, go for it.
so, assuming you haven't played it or don't own it, I am going to get you a game called Detention.
Oh, yeah, I know what game you're talking about. Awesome.
Yeah, Detention for me is a 5-star game. It's one of the best horror games I've ever played. It's
Yeah,
a
I've seen a little bit of this played before, and I think I even saw you play a little bit of this.
Yeah, it's got, it's got a story. It's got a pretty deep story, and really took me. It's a story that no other horror game is gonna tell because it's kind of exclusive to it, the type of game it is. And you'll see it. And also, it got me thinking because they made another game called Devotion,
Oh,
which
I don't think I knew about that one.
well, you wouldn't because it got banned on everything.
Oh, gotcha.
They had like some weird thing that was anti-Chinese, and
Oh,
every single store that sold it kind of backed out, and because China put some pressure on them, and they said, "Well, look,
yeah.
your game isn't that good." So nothing sells it. You can only buy it from their website now. So I was just thinking about buying it, and it got me thinking like, oh, I should buy her Detention because it's a 5-star game for me. So maybe it won't be for you, but it's definitely top tier.
Well, I'm going to be buying you a horror game as well. One of my favorites, and you went old school on me last time by buying me Metal Gear Solid, and this is definitely going to be old school.
Okay.
I'm going to get you Sanitarium.
Sanitarium. Hold up.
Yes. I did look on your backlog and you didn't have it on there.
I'm
If
gonna
you
look.
do have, if you are getting it, I've got some backup options.
Okay. We're gonna pause the podcast. I'm gonna look. Sanitarium, I got it. It's on Amazon.
Oh, okay. Well, all
I'm
right.
sorry
Hold
about
on.
that.
Well, do you have the room? Because that was the first option.
The room?
Yeah.
No, I'm sure I don't.
Cool.
I'll take the room. Sanitarium. That's funny because I swear, like, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh no, I should have updated. Okay, the
I'll
room.
tell you too. I know when you said you had never played the room or seen anything of it, I was like, because that was my first choice, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna get him Sanitarium. It's a classic for me. Or there's another option. I might let you pick.
Maybe hold it for next time, and I'm down with going with the room for now.
Okay.
'Cause that
Okay.
sounded
Because
pretty interesting.
next time I could almost kind of punish you with my choice because it's a very divided game. But yeah, we can go with the room then.
Okay, don't give me anything too terrible.
Well, I wouldn't do anything terrible on purpose. It was a game that I loved, but other people did not.
I'll check on the room just in case, but for right now, I'm pretty sure I don't have it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, but I'll look after the podcast. But
So do you want me to wait to actually gift it to you?
yes, wait for a few seconds, please.
Okay.
But anyway, for now, that's where we stand. You're at 36. I'm at 39. Next podcast, honestly, we'll probably just do it at the end of the year, or January.
Yeah.
Because since we made it so far now, and we'll see where we are then. But thanks, Michelle, for doing the podcast with me, and I'll see you next time.
All right. See you guys.